Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel, the Mutant God in American Comics. Chapter 21, Sentinel Robot. After hearing Benjamin's words, Intelligence Chief Jack was stunned. As the Intelligence Chief of the Los Angeles branch, he knew very well what the use of Sentinel robots meant. At the same time, he also knew how terrifying the Sentinel robots were. Mutants' natural enemy. This is the best description of the Sentinel robot. Are you sure you want to apply to the branch director for permission to use the Sentinel robot? Even if Aiden and Belt are dead, you should still have a lot of people to use. Jack asked Benjamin, I won't let my men die in vain again. I will personally take the Sentinel robot to capture Richard Wesley. Benjamin replied with murderous intent on his face. Although the Los Angeles branch is only one of the many branches of the Mutant Affairs Department. But since the establishment of the Los Angeles branch, the operations department has never suffered such heavy casualties. In just a few days, 15 of his mutant agents were killed. This is not only a stain on his personal resume, but also a serious provocation to the Mutant Affairs Department. If he remained indifferent after so many of his men died, then he was too incompetent as the director of the operations department. Seeing the strong murderous intent on Benjamin's face, Jack immediately gave up the idea of persuading him and quickly said, Give me an hour, I will come to you with a preliminary investigation report. After that, Jack left Benjamin's office. Suburbs of Los Angeles. Sabertooth's safe house. Richard and the other two were enjoying today's lunch. After working in the kitchen for more than half an hour, Clarice cooked today's lunch alone. Richard didn't have high expectations for Clarice's cooking skills. After all, Clarice was only 17 or 18 years old, and her cooking experience could not be rich. But the facts proved that he underestimated Clarice. Clarice's control and development of superpowers were indeed not in depth, but her cooking skills were not ordinary. Not only that, what she prepared for lunch today was actually Chinese food. To be precise, it was an authentic Chinese meal with a very homely flavor. This was the first Chinese meal Richard had after traveling to this world. Although Clarice's cooking skills could not compare with the chefs in the restaurant, he was still very satisfied with the meal. Soon, the 4 dishes and 1 soup prepared by Clarice were completely eaten up. Comfortable. Chinese food is indeed more in line with my appetite. Although the original body is an out-and-out American, he who occupies the body of the original body is a Chinese who grew up eating the food of the flower-growing family. Compared with American food such as steak, bacon, fried eggs, hot dogs, and sandwiches, he likes and recognizes Chinese food more. In his opinion, American food can only be used to fill the stomach. Only Chinese food can bring you the experience of enjoying food. After eating and drinking, Richard found an excuse and flashed away from the apartment. A forest outside the suburbs. After flashing into the forest and confirming that there were no other people around, he took out the authentic knife from the system space. Tonight we will attack the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department. Before that, he planned to practice the dimension slash that the system had just rewarded. He held the handle of the authentic sword with his left hand, and after a casual dance of the sword, he immediately performed the dimension slash. The authentic sword was swung out with lightning, and a spherical area with a diameter of nearly 2 meters appeared dozens of meters away, as if the space was distorted and mixed with some black shadows. At the same time, 7 or 8 crescent-shaped, sword energy, appeared out of thin air and instantly passed through the spherical area. Although Richard did not lock on any target now, he just performed the dimension slash dozens of meters away. But after seeing the crescent-shaped slash of the dimension slash, he knew that the slash of the dimension slash was stronger than the level 2-8 sword's flash. Dimension slash proficiency +1. The voice of the system sounded in Richard's mind. He ignored the voice of the system and directly opened the attribute panel to take a look at the magic power. 2 points of magic power once. At this time, Dimension Slash was only level 1, but the consumption of Dimension Slash was twice that of level 1-8 Sword's Flash and Earth Shaking. Although the system did not explain why Dimension Slash consumed twice as much as other skills for all level 1 skills. But Richard soon had a guess. Yama Blade. Dimension Slash is the exclusive move of Yama Blade. If he was using Yama Blade to perform Dimension Slash now, the consumption of Dimension Slash would be the same as level 1-8 Sword's Flash, earth-shaking, and other skills, all of which only required 1 point of magic power. But unfortunately, he did not have Yama Blade now. To make up for this, he could only consume more magic power to perform Dimension Slash. After closing the attribute panel and adapting to the locking and releasing of Dimension Slash in the forest, Richard performed Flash and returned to Sabertooth Tiger's apartment. Time flies. Unknowingly, the time came to 8 o'clock in the evening. After eating dinner in the apartment, Clarice created a space door to leave the apartment. Just like in the morning, Clarice set the exit of the space gate on the rooftop of a building a few hundred meters away from the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department. Compared with the morning, the office building of the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department is not much different. If there is any difference, it is that there are fewer staff inside. After taking a look at the office building of the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department, Richard asked Sabertooth, "Have you inquired about the situation inside in advance?" "Of course. Don't worry about the floors on the ground, they are all ordinary office spaces. The laboratories and cells for holding criminals are all underground. There should be 3 floors underground. The first floor is an ordinary laboratory, and the second floor is our target tonight. If my clones and your father had not been transferred, they would be on the second floor underground now." Sabertooth replied immediately, "What about the third floor underground? What's there?" Richard continued to ask. "I don't know. My informant told me that even in the Los Angeles branch, only a small number of people have permission to enter the third floor underground. Although my informant doesn't know what's on the third floor underground, he suggested that I'd better not go to the third floor underground, because there might be some very scary things there." Quote, "Although Sabertooth Tiger is not a good person in the secular sense, he has lived for almost 200 years anyway. There may not be many people who can be considered his friends, but he definitely knows a lot of people from all walks of life. The second underground floor, right. No problem, let's go." After saying that, Richard took out a more than 2-meter-long genuine knife from the system space. Seeing him take out the genuine knife, Clarice immediately raised her right hand and prepared to throw out the purple space energy to create a space door. She originally wanted to create a space door directly to the second underground floor of the Los Angeles branch. But before she threw out the space energy in her hand, Richard said to her, "You don't need to create a space door to the second underground floor. Just open the space door in front of the main door of the office building. I don't like to sneak in. I like to go in directly from the main door. Break in through the main gate." After hearing his words, Clarice and Sabertooth were stunned. They knew that Richard was very strong and could kill more than 10 mutant agents by himself. But they didn't know that Richard had such a crazy side. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Sabertooth asked with a frown. "What's the uncertainty? Anyway, we have to offend the Mutant Affairs Department, so let's do it more straightforwardly. It will be much more convenient to sneak in, but it will be a little less imposing. It's more domineering to break in through the main gate," Richard said seriously. Sabertooth and Clarice didn't know the existence of the system, and they didn't know that he had to kill 12 mutant agents to complete the task and get the Phantom Sword rewarded by the system. It's indeed domineering to break in through the main gate, but you should also know that this will make our operation tonight more difficult. I don't think that we can deal with everyone in the Los Angeles branch with just the 2 of us." Sabertooth continued. "Although he has bone claws and a super self-healing ability far beyond that of ordinary people, he is also very clear about his weaknesses. Ordinary guns can't kill him, but his self-healing also takes time. If the head or heart is hit by a bullet, the self-healing time will be greatly extended. How about this? I will break in from the main door, and you use the space door made by Clarice to go directly to the second underground floor, and we will act separately." Seeing that Sabertooth Tiger did not particularly approve of his plan, Richard gave a new plan. Although it was not a good idea to act separately, Sabertooth Tiger still agreed with Richard's new plan. No matter how you look at it, acting separately is better than 2 people breaking in from the main door. Sabertooth Tiger did not say anything else, and began to let Clarice make a space door to the second underground floor. Soon, Clarice made the space door. As soon as the space door was formed, Sabertooth Tiger walked in. At the same time, Richard performed a flash and came directly from the top of the building to the front door of the Los Angeles branch office building. Without any hesitation, he raised his right hand and pointed his palm at the metal door in front of him. Bounce. The air in front of him was compressed rapidly under the effect of superpower bounce, and then flew towards the metal door at high speed like an air cannon. Boom. The compressed air hit the metal door heavily. The huge impact force directly lifted the metal door, causing it to fly several meters away and hit the ground with a clang. After using the bounce ability that originally belonged to Inessa to blow the metal door away, Richard walked in with the authentic sword with a calm face. Residual heart. After seeing the guards in the gate guard hall raise their pistols and point the guns at him, he raised the authentic sword and waved it casually. As the authentic sword fell, 6 or 7 crescent-shaped sword chi with purple outer and white inner flew towards these guards. Chi. Before these guards had time to shoot, the crescent-shaped sword chi passed through their bodies and split them in two. With the constant reminder of proficiency, Richard's control over Zangson became more and more handy. Even the crescent-shaped sword energy created by Zangson, he can now control it to a certain extent, instead of being unable to change the attack trajectory of the crescent-shaped sword energy after it was launched like before. After killing these guards, Richard did not immediately enter the office building of the Los Angeles branch, but stopped in the square in front of the building. Although the authentic sword can cut reinforced concrete buildings like watermelons with the blessing of magic, but using the authentic sword in a closed room is still not as good as using it in an open area. In addition, he did not plan to enter the office building immediately for another purpose. That is to help the saber-toothed tiger share the pressure. With him attracting attention in the square in front of the building, the saber-toothed tiger that has already sneaked into the second underground floor will be much easier. In terms of combat experience, he is far from being able to compare with the saber-toothed tiger. But in terms of strength, 10 saber-toothed tigers are not his opponents. As he guessed, a large group of fully armed guards quickly rushed out of the office building. Although he hadn't seen the special forces and mutant agents yet, he didn't intend to let these guards go. As long as they were enemies, kill them. After these guards rushed out of the office building, he immediately used flash and started a one-sided massacre with unequal numbers and strengths. Chi. After an afternoon of recovery, his magic power had completely recovered. But at this time, he didn't use skills such as 8 Swords Flash and Earth Shaking, but waved the authentic sword and attacked these guards with ordinary slashes. Although it was an ordinary slash that didn't consume magic power, it was enough to kill these guards. As the authentic sword continued to swing, he harvested the lives of these guards like the death god of hell. In less than 10 seconds, the first batch of guards who rushed out of the office building were slaughtered by him. Broken limbs and arms were scattered all over the ground, and the strong smell of blood was blown around by the night wind. The urgent alarm sounded throughout the building, making the originally quiet building extremely lively. At the same time, the scene of Richard frantically killing guards in front of the main entrance of the building was also captured by the surveillance camera, and it appeared clearly in the sight of Benjamin, Jack and others. Richard Wesley. After seeing that the person who frantically killed the guards was Richard, Benjamin immediately showed an uncontrollable strong killing intention. Then, he decisively picked up the phone and dialed an internal number. "I am Benjamin Kem, start the Sentinel robot immediately." After saying that, he hung up the phone without waiting for the person on the other end of the phone to speak, and left the office without looking back. He thought it was some blind illegal mutant who came to the branch building to show off. Unexpectedly, the person who came was Richard, who killed 15 of his men. Although he did not witness the scene when Aiden and others were killed, he knew that this was all Richard's masterpiece. Aiden and Belt had reported the news of Sabertooth and Clarice being captured in advance. Not only that, they also reported the plan to use Sabertooth and Clarice to coerce Richard. After leaving the office, Benjamin did not return to the operations department, but went directly to the end of the corridor outside the office. Bang! He raised his right fist, smashed the window glass at the end of the corridor with one punch, and jumped directly from the window. His office is located on the 4th floor of the office building. For ordinary people, jumping directly from the 4th floor is not a good idea. But for Benjamin, who is a level 4, or alpha level mutant, this is not a problem at all. After landing on the grass outside the window, he immediately used his superpowers without any hesitation. Man of Steel. With the use of superpowers, Benjamin's black skin immediately showed a metallic luster like steel. At the same time, his strength, endurance, physique, etc. have been qualitatively improved. He only has the superpower of Man of Steel. But this still allows him to sit firmly in the position of head of the operations department of the Los Angeles branch. After using the Man of Steel, he immediately ran towards the main entrance of the building. Soon, Benjamin ran to the front door of the office building and saw Richard, who was killing a new batch of guards. Without any hesitation, he ran towards Richard like a mad rhino. Although he had never seen Benjamin before, Richard immediately recognized that he was not an ordinary mutant agent. Compared with Aiden and others, Benjamin was much stronger in terms of momentum and oppression. In addition, Benjamin's steel body gave him a sense of crisis that he had never felt before. To be precise, it was a slight sense of crisis. Although it was not a particularly strong sense of crisis, and it was unknown how strong Benjamin's steel body was, one thing was certain, that is, Benjamin was more difficult to deal with than Aiden and others combined. His judgment was not wrong. Benjamin was indeed more difficult to deal with than Aiden and others combined. Otherwise, Benjamin, who only had the superpower of the steel body, would never be able to hold the position of the head of the operations department, let alone make the unruly Inessa and Aiden and others obey his command. After just 2 or 3 seconds, Benjamin ran to Richard, and his right fist with a metallic luster hit his head like a cannonball. Just looking at Benjamin's punching speed, Richard knew that if he was hit in the head by this punch, he would definitely feel his head exploded completely. But even so, he still did not use the flash to leave, but also swung his right fist. Attack against attack, fist against fist. Although he did not have a steel body like Benjamin, he also had super strength and super physique far beyond ordinary people, and his super strength and super physique were strengthened several times. Bang! Richard and Benjamin's right fists collided heavily, and a dull collision sound like a war drum broke out. Not only that, the moment the fists collided, a shock wave like air wave was immediately generated. The air wave visible to the naked eye swept around at an astonishing speed, blowing away the nearby guards like a hurricane. The glass door and nearby windows of the building also shattered under the double impact of sound waves and air waves, and large and small fragments flew around like raindrops. What a strong power! Neither Richard nor Benjamin thought that the other party had the same power as themselves, and they felt the same emotion in their hearts. Especially Benjamin. After discovering that Richard's power was not weaker than his, he began to understand why Inessa and Aiden couldn't take down Richard. Through the examination of Aiden and others' bodies, the investigators of the intelligence department found that Aiden and others were not all killed by Richard with the authentic knife. In addition to the agents whose necks were cut off and their bodies were split in two by the authentic knife, there were also many mutant agents who were killed by lightning and freezing. Although it is not known how many superpowers Richard has, Benjamin knows 6 so far. Summoning a long sword, flashing, bouncing, lightning, freezing, super strength. Although the number of superpowers does not equal the strength, a mutant with many superpowers will definitely not be too bad. After finding that Richard was more difficult than he thought, the furious Benjamin gradually calmed down, put on a standard boxing stance, and attacked again. Before joining the Mutant Affairs Department, Benjamin was a well-known professional boxer. Although he has never won a gold belt, he is still an undoubted professional boxer. In a boxing match, he was about to lose the game and suddenly awakened the superpower, steel body. Then, in front of the live audience and the live broadcast audience, he threw an uppercut that ordinary people could never bear, and smashed the opponent's head with one punch. The bloody scene not only shocked the audience at the scene in the live broadcast, but also scared Benjamin himself. The next thing is very simple. He was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide and first-degree reckless homicide, and was sentenced to 120 years in prison. However, he did not stay in prison for long. Less than a month after being imprisoned in the mutant prison, he was bailed out by the Mutant Affairs Department. After 3 months of training, he went from being a felon who committed first-degree intentional homicide and first-degree reckless homicide to an agent of the Mutant Affairs Department. When Benjamin took his habitual boxing stance and attacked again, Richard had no intention of competing with him in fighting skills, and swung the authentic knife in his left hand with lightning. Earth shaking. The fatal and gorgeous 4-cut lightning swung out, interrupting Benjamin's attack and constantly slashing across his body. Chi 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 chi. Benjamin immediately had 4 wounds several tens of centimeters long. What is this? Seeing that Benjamin was not chopped into pieces of different sizes like Inessa and Aiden, Richard did not hesitate and decisively performed flash, appearing more than 20 meters away. Although he already knew that Benjamin had superpowers that were not inferior to his own, he did not expect that Benjamin's body defense would be so high that he could not be killed even by earth-shaking. If it was the earth-shaking skill before it was upgraded, Richard would not be too surprised if it failed to chop Benjamin into pieces. But the earth-shaking skill he just used was upgraded to level 2. Like the upgraded 8 Blades Flash, the power of earth-shaking skill has also been significantly improved. Even if Benjamin's body was really made of steel, he was confident that he could chop Benjamin into pieces. However, now, the level 2 earthquake only left Benjamin with a wound several tens of centimeters long and 1 or 2 centimeters deep. Although the defense was broken, this level of damage was not fatal. Like Richard, Benjamin also showed an expression of surprise on his face. Although the Iron Man gave him power far beyond that of ordinary people. But as the name suggests, the most powerful ability of the Iron Man is not super strength, but the amazing defense that is stronger than steel. This is the first time he was injured after awakening the Iron Man. Just as Richard and Benjamin looked at each other with vigilance, the ground suddenly shook slightly. Along with the vibration, a circular entrance and exit leading directly to the 3rd underground floor appeared in the square in front of the office building. A few seconds later, 3 nearly 4-meter-tall robots, all black, with yellow light shining on their chests and eyes, and their bodies seemed to have scales, appeared in Richard's sight. Sentinel robots. Although it was the first time he saw it with his own eyes, Richard recognized the 3 tall black robots as Sentinel robots that were specially used to hunt mutants. In the movie Days of Future Past, there were only 2 versions of Sentinel robots. One was a prototype that appeared in 1973, had the ability to fly, was made of space polymer, and mainly used the Gatling gun on the right hand to attack the target. As for the second version, it appeared in the future, using the transformation principle of Mystique to make it, and could copy mutant abilities at will and share them with other Sentinels. It was a future Sentinel with advanced intelligence and joint combat capabilities. What appeared in Richard's sight now was neither the prototype in 1973 nor the future Sentinel that completely exterminated mutants, but the 3rd generation of Sentinels belonging to the current era. Is this the trump card of the Mutant Affairs Department? After seeing these 3 Sentinel robots, Richard knew that tonight's battle would not end so easily. Although he didn't know what abilities the 3 Sentinel robots had, Richard was not particularly surprised to see the Sentinel robots. After digesting the memories of the original body, he knew that the Mutant Affairs Department had successfully developed the Sentinel robots. Not only that, the original body also knew that the Sentinel robots had impressive strength. As far as the original body knew, the Mutant Affairs Department had sent Sentinel robots to perform many tasks. Among these capture and kill missions, only one mission failed, which was the mission to capture Magneto. As for the other missions, they were all completed with amazing efficiency. Although it is unknown how Magneto did it, it is rumored that Magneto fought against 5 Sentinel robots alone, destroyed all 5 Sentinel robots with his own strength, and was unscathed. After taking a look at the Sentinel robots that appeared, Richard did not use the X-Gene superpower to attack them, but raised his right hand and used Sephiroth's skill, Great Thunderbolt. As his right hand was raised, a low thunder sounded in the air immediately. At the same time, silver-white lightning swam in the night sky like a living thunder snake. The strange phenomenon in the night sky immediately attracted the attention of Benjamin and other staff members. Is it the superpower to control lightning? After seeing this scene, Benjamin immediately remembered the investigation report he had just read this afternoon. According to the statistics of the Intelligence Department investigators, 3 people in Aiden's group were killed by powerful lightning. Although the investigation report did not describe in detail how they died, it is clear that this was Richard's work. Neither Sabertooth nor Clarice had the ability to control and release lightning. Compared with ordinary people, the agents of the Mutant Affairs Department are indeed very strong. But most mutant agents are ordinary flesh and blood. Not to mention the lightning of the power of heaven, even a 9mm pistol bullet can take their lives. When the silver-white lightning swam in the night sky like a thunder snake, Richard did not hesitate and waved his right hand gently. As his right hand fell, the silver-white lightning swam in the night sky immediately attacked the sentry robot in the square. Boom! Amid the huge thunder, the silver-white lightning instantly hit the Sentinel robot on the square, and the terrifying electric current roamed wildly on the Sentinel robot. If it was an ordinary robot, after being hit by the silver-white lightning, even if it was not scrapped on the spot, the internal chips and circuit boards would be burned due to the erosion of the high-voltage current. But it is obvious that the Sentinel robot is not an ordinary robot. If the lightning attack can easily destroy the Sentinel robot, then the Sentinel robot cannot become the natural enemy of mutants. The silver-white lightning that is enough to turn ordinary people into charcoal did not destroy the Sentinel robot, but only penetrated the outer armor of the landing area, revealing the structure inside a little. Although the 3 Sentinel robots were not destroyed, Richard was not particularly surprised. The Sentinel robot is the trump card that the Mutant Affairs Department is proud of. Under the gaze of Richard, Benjamin and others, the scale-like armor on the Sentinel robot began to deform strangely. Soon, all the electric snakes wandering on them disappeared, as if they were absorbed. Just when Benjamin and other staff members thought that the sentry robot was going to attack Richard in the same way, the sentry robot strangely stopped in place without any movement. What happened? Benjamin looked at the motionless sentry robot with a look of surprise. If the chest and eyes of the sentry robot were not still shining, he would have thought that the 3 sentry robots were down. Benjamin didn't know what happened to the 3 sentry robots, and the remote monitoring personnel on the 3rd underground floor were also confused. The sentry robot does not require manual operation. But after several versions of updates, the current sentry robot can collect data in real time and transmit it back. In addition, the staff in the monitoring room can also understand the status of the sentry robot at any time, or understand the situation on the scene through the sentry robot. At this time, on the large screen in the monitoring room, garbled characters that the staff had never seen before appeared. What is this? Is the system faulty? Looking at the garbled characters on the large screen, the staff in the monitoring room showed blank expressions. The data on the screen showed that the sentry robot was not seriously injured, but only the local armor was damaged. But the Sentinel robots in the square stood still as if their energy was exhausted. Neither Benjamin nor the staff in the monitoring room realized that the lightning attack performed by Richard was not the X-gene superpower, but a skill performed by magic. Unlike Benjamin and others who had no idea what was happening, Richard quickly guessed the reason after seeing the Sentinel robots standing still. System crash. The internal systems of these Sentinel robots crashed. The Sentinel robots do not have real consciousness and only act according to the set program. After being struck by lightning, they followed the set program and prepared to copy Richard's superpower to deal with Richard. If Richard is now using the X-gene superpower, there will be no problem with the copying of the Sentinel robots. Not only that, they can also use superpowers copied in advance to deal with Richard. But Richard, who knew early on that they could copy mutants' superpowers, did not use the X-gene superpowers but used Sephiroth's skills. Although they are both supernatural powers, the skills that Richard uses magic and the superpowers of mutants are 2 completely different fields. The 2 have nothing in common except that neither obeys the laws of physics very much. Using the method of copying mutant superpowers to copy Richard's skills is as outrageous as using the Ming Dynasty's Shang Feng sword to kill Qing Dynasty officials. Not to mention that these sentry robots can't do it. Even if Ancient One and Doctor Strange come, they can't copy the skills that Richard uses magic to perform. After all, these skills are products of another world. Even the magic power was formulated by the system to facilitate Richard's understanding of the energy required to release skills. To put it simply, the magic power possessed by Richard and the magic power possessed by other mages are 2 completely different entities. Richard originally just wanted to test the defense of the sentry robot with the lightning attack of the big thunder and lightning. Unexpectedly, the sentry robot would actually cause the system to crash because it tried to copy the thunder and lightning. Although this situation was not within his expectation, after seeing this scene, he did not waste this unexpected opportunity. Flash. Without any hesitation, he immediately used Flash to come to one of the sentry robots. 8 swords flash. 8 lightning slashes were swung out in a smooth motion, and the sharp authentic knife kept slicing across the body of the sentry robot. Under the gaze of Benjamin and others, the sentry robot in front of Richard was immediately chopped into large and small pieces of debris, and was completely scrapped before anything could be done. The most difficult thing about Sentinel robots is that they can copy mutants' superpowers and use mutants' superpowers to deal with mutants. Without the ability to copy or use mutants' superpowers, the Sentinel robot's combat effectiveness will plummet. After seeing Richard destroying a sentry robot instantly, Benjamin ran towards Richard without any hesitation. Although he had exploded at his fastest speed, he still failed to stop Richard from continuing to destroy the Sentinel robot. 8 swords flash. Richard once again used 8 swords to dodge and destroyed the second sentry robot. Just when he was about to destroy the third sentry robot in one go, Benjamin finally came in front of him and rammed towards him like a crazy bison. Flash. Before Benjamin could hit him, Richard used flash and left. Although he failed to hit Richard, Benjamin successfully prevented him from destroying the third Sentinel robot. In other words, it temporarily prevented him from destroying the third Sentinel robot. Richard, who flashed to more than 20 meters away, ignored Benjamin and focused his eyes on the last sentry robot. Although the sentry robot stayed motionless due to system crash, it did not pose any threat to him. But he still wouldn't give the sentry robot a chance to return to the factory for repairs. After locking his eyes on the sentry robot, he held the authentic sword and waved it casually. Dimensional slash. After seeing Richard standing in the distance and swinging his sword, Benjamin thought Richard was going to release a crescent-shaped energy blade to attack himself and the Sentinel robot. But soon, he found that Richard was not going to release a crescent-shaped energy blade. Standing in front of the Sentinel robot, he suddenly had a strange feeling he had never experienced before, as if the space behind him was suddenly distorted, generating a strong attraction similar to that of a black hole. His feeling was not wrong, the space behind him was indeed distorted, and it generated a strong attraction that had never existed before. However, the person Richard wanted to attack was not him, but the Sentinel robot behind him. With the Sentinel robot as the center, the space of several meters around was strangely distorted, and a black shadow appeared as if the space was torn apart. At the same time, a crescent-shaped, sword energy, with terrifying cutting ability appeared out of thin air and attacked the Sentinel robot from different angles. Chi. Compared with flesh and blood, the Sentinel robot does have good defense. But in front of Richard's dimension slash, the Sentinel robot was as fragile as a cream cake. In just a blink of an eye, the Sentinel robot was chopped into large and small pieces by the crescent-shaped sword energy, and fell to the ground one after another under the action of gravity. After seeing the dimension slash easily destroy the Sentinel robot with a system crash, Richard showed a satisfied expression. Among the skills he has mastered now, the dimension slash is definitely the skill with the strongest attack power. Even the 8 swords flash, which has been upgraded to level 2, is slightly inferior to the dimension slash in terms of attack power. Although the 8 swords flash does not follow the laws of physics, it is much more normal than the dimension slash. The sharp cutting ability of the 8 swords flash is mainly due to the enhancement of magic. To put it in a more vivid way, it is like being enchanted with the extreme sharpness attribute. But the dimension slash is different. In addition to the enhancement of magic, the dimension slash's slash also involves the space field. In other words, it has some space attributes. Although this does not mean that the dimension slash can cut off everything in the world, the dimension slash's slash can cut off most objects. The Sentinel robot is indeed the trump card of the Mutant Affairs Department. But the dimension slash is also Richard's trump card. As trump cards, Richard's trump card is obviously stronger than that of the Mutant Affairs Department. Benjamin did not see how the dimension slash destroyed the Sentinel robot, but he heard the sound of the dimension slash chopping the Sentinel robot into several pieces and the wreckage of the Sentinel robot falling to the ground. Although he did not know how Richard did it, he immediately had a strong sense of crisis in his heart. In terms of defense, his steel body is much stronger than the Sentinel robot. But this does not mean that his steel body cannot be injured. Richard had just injured him with the earth-moving slash, leaving 4 wounds of dozens of centimeters long on his body. Although these wounds are not fatal, it is enough to show that Richard's attack can break the defense of the steel body. If Richard can only perform attacks that break the defense of the steel body at close range, Benjamin will not care too much. Because while Richard is approaching him, he can also attack Richard. But if Richard could perform an attack that broke the defense of the Iron Man without getting close to him, that would be another matter. Benjamin doesn't play games, but he is no stranger to the so-called kite-flying tactics. Trouble. After realizing this, Benjamin's already ugly face became even uglier. Although he was reluctant, he had to admit that if he was alone, he would probably not be able to take down Richard. Not only that, if there were no other mutant agents to help, he would probably die in Richard's hands. After realizing this, he did not hesitate at all, and immediately looked at a surveillance camera in the square and shouted to the surveillance camera. "Notify all agents in the operations department. I don't care where they are now or what they are doing, let them come back as quickly as possible." Although he couldn't see the situation in the monitoring room, Benjamin was sure that the staff in the monitoring room were now paying attention to his and Richard's every move. In other words, after hearing his words, the staff in the monitoring room would contact the mutant agents of the operations department as soon as possible. Richard also heard Benjamin's words, but he did not go over to interrupt Benjamin. As for the reason, it was very simple. Because after killing several groups of guards of the Los Angeles branch, he found that the mutant agents of the Los Angeles branch seemed to have gone off work. If the mutant agents of the operations department had not gone off work, after he killed the first group of guards, the mutant agents of the operations department would come out to stop him. And the current situation is that except for Benjamin, he has not seen any mutant agents. As for whether there are mutant guards on the second and third underground floors, he is not sure now. However, even if there are, those mutant guards are now the target of Sabertooth. Although he did not see other mutant agents, Richard was not particularly surprised by this. In other words, he and Sabertooth decided to attack the Los Angeles branch at night, and they had already considered this situation. The agents of the Mutant Affairs Department are just workers. Although the United States is a capitalist country, the workers in the United States are not as miserable as imagined. Let alone, 996 is very rare in the United States. Whether it is the agents of the Mutant Affairs Department or the police in Los Angeles, unless there is an emergency, otherwise, overtime is rarely seen. To put it simply, it means going to work on time and leaving get off work on time. There are many mutants who don't like the Mutant Affairs Department, but there are not many mutants who dare to attack the Mutant Affairs Department. After all, not all mutants have strong combat power. In addition, most mutants who oppose the Mutant Restriction Act and hate the Mutant Affairs Department dare only express their dissatisfaction verbally or on some trivial matters. Let them take up arms to attack the Mutant Affairs Department. Most mutants do not have this courage. This is also an important reason why the Mutant Restriction Act can be smoothly implemented. Fairness must be achieved with fists. If you don't dare to resist yourself, don't blame others for being aggressive. After Benjamin finished shouting at the surveillance camera, Richard said to him, "Are you the head of the operations department of the Los Angeles branch?" Benjamin did not answer him and took a defensive posture. Seeing that Benjamin did not intend to answer his question, Richard did not intend to waste time with him. Dimension Slash. Without any hesitation, he raised the authentic knife and swung it hard, once again performing the Dimension Slash. After seeing Richard raise the authentic knife, Benjamin did not stay where he was and wait for death. He suddenly exerted force with his legs and shot towards Richard. He reacted quickly and his speed was not slow. But the Dimension Slash released by Richard was not so easy to dodge. If you can avoid the Dimension Slash by leaving your original position, then the weakness of the Dimension Slash is too obvious. Benjamin had just run a few meters when he found himself running into the attack range of the Dimension Slash, and the surrounding space was strangely distorted in a way that science could not explain. And he happened to be in the center of the distorted space. How is this possible? Benjamin had an incredible expression on his face. He would never have thought that he would enter the attack area of Dimension Slash unknowingly while trying to avoid the attack of Dimension Slash, just like jumping into the trap set by Richard. Unlike Benjamin, who had an incredible expression on his face, Richard was calm at this time. The Dimension Slash that had been performed could not change its position. But before the Dimension Slash was formed, he could adjust the position of the Dimension Slash at any time. In the words of the game, it was to relock the target. Seeing Richard raise the authentic knife, Benjamin immediately started to act. If he just dodged, Richard might not be able to lock him so easily. But unfortunately, Benjamin actually ran towards him. If Benjamin showed obvious intention to attack, he still couldn't guess where Benjamin would appear next, then he was too slow. When Dimension Slash began to distort space and completely locked Benjamin, Richard was gone. At this point, as long as he didn't cut off the supply of magic power, the Dimension Slash would attack Benjamin from all directions at the same time. As the space twisted, the crescent-shaped sword energy of the Dimension Slash appeared out of thin air and struck Benjamin with lightning. Chi. The sound of the crescent-shaped sword energy tearing the body continued to ring. Under Richard's gaze, Benjamin's right arm and legs were cut off at the root, blood splattered everywhere, and the whole person fell to the ground uncontrollably. He didn't die. Seeing that Benjamin was only cut off his right arm and legs by the Dimension Slash, and was not killed by the Dimension Slash, Richard frowned slightly. Although Benjamin had resisted the earth-shaking once with his body before, the Dimension Slash was not the earth-shaking. In terms of power, the power of the Dimension Slash is much stronger than the earth-shaking. Even if the Dimension Slash is only level 1 now, the power of the Dimension Slash is much higher than the earth-shaking. Is it an alpha-level superpower? Although Benjamin's superpowers have not been plundered yet, after seeing that Benjamin was not killed by the Dimension Slash, Richard knew that Benjamin's superpowers were most likely alpha-level superpowers. This means that even if he kills Benjamin now, he can't plunder Benjamin's superpowers. Let's save this guy's life first. After thinking about it, Richard decided to save Benjamin's life for the time being. He is not sure whether the beta level, Plunder, can be upgraded to alpha level after he kills other mutant agents in the operations department. But if he kills Benjamin now, he still can't plunder Benjamin's superpowers. In this case, it's better to let Benjamin live for a while. Anyway, Benjamin has no ability to resist now. Richard didn't expect Benjamin to be able to withstand the attack of the Dimension Slash and not die. Benjamin also didn't expect that his proud body of steel would be defeated so easily. The severe pain from the broken right arm and legs made him regret why he didn't call back the agents of the operations department in advance tonight. If he hadn't been so careless and called back the agents of the operations department in advance, he might have avoided the current outcome. Under Benjamin's gaze, Richard flashed in front of him. Then, he grabbed his shoulder. Flash. The next second, Richard and Benjamin disappeared at the same time. Although he didn't plan to kill Benjamin immediately, he didn't plan to leave Benjamin in the square. Richard didn't take Benjamin back to the roof of the building where Clarice was, but flashed to the roof of another building. You're lucky, I have other things to deal with, you can live a little longer. Richard said to Benjamin, do you want to save your father? Don't be delusional, your father has been sent away. If I die, I can guarantee that your father will come down to accompany me soon. Benjamin said loudly to Richard. You'd better save some energy. The more excited you are, the faster you will die. After saying that, Richard raised his right hand, slightly bent his middle finger, and shot it at Benjamin's head. Fly. Bang. The compressed air hit Benjamin's head like a fist, knocking Benjamin, who could no longer maintain his steel body, unconscious. Looking at Benjamin, who was completely unconscious, Richard once again used the flash. He did not flash back to the square in front of the office building, but flashed to the second underground floor of the office building. As soon as he flashed to the second underground floor, he heard fierce gunshots and shouts from afar. In addition, he also saw many bodies of guards in the corridor. These guards were like being bitten by wild beasts, with fatal wounds left by sharp claws. It goes without saying that they were all killed by saber-toothed tigers. Looking at the bodies of the guards, Richard immediately walked towards the direction of the gunshots without any hesitation. Soon, he saw the saber-toothed tiger fighting with the guards. As he expected, the saber-toothed tiger at this time showed the same primitive fighting style as a wild beast, waving its hands and madly attacking the guards in front of it. Although there was only one person and he had no weapons. But with its self-healing ability far beyond that of ordinary people and its primitive fighting style like a beast, the saber-toothed tiger fought against many enemies alone and staged its own killing feast on the second underground floor. Richard did not make any sound, but the saber-toothed tiger still noticed his arrival. With its sharp sense of smell like a beast, he smelled Richard's scent. The saber-toothed tiger immediately turned his head and looked at him. After seeing that he had no intention of attacking the guards, the saber-toothed tiger immediately retracted his gaze and continued his killing feast. Time passed little by little. More than a minute later. Relying on its fearlessness and wild fighting style like a beast, the saber-toothed tiger killed all the guards in front of it, leaving the corridor, which was not particularly spacious, full of the bodies of the guards. After killing all the guards, the bloody Sabertooth came to Richard and asked immediately, "Have you dealt with the people above?" "No, I just defeated the director of the operations department. Now it's half time. The second half will start after the other agents of the operations department come back." Richard replied calmly. "Half time." Sabertooth frowned slightly, not knowing why Richard did this, and continued, "I just caught a few researchers in the laboratory and asked them. Your father has been sent to the mutant prison. I know, the director of the operations department has told me." "Where are your clones? I didn't see their bodies." Richard asked Sabertooth. "They should be here soon. I smell the disgusting smell of them coming in and out, and they are getting closer and closer." As soon as Sabertooth finished speaking, Richard saw his clones. To be precise, there were 5 younger and more handsome Sabertooths. Although they are Sabertooth's clones, these 5 clones, both in appearance and in real age, look much younger than Sabertooth. If Sabertooth gives people the impression of a middle-aged uncle in his 40s or 50s, then his clones look like they are only in their early 30s. In addition, compared with Sabertooth, who is untidy and unkempt, these clones have no beards and their hairstyles are all short. In addition, they wear uniform black combat uniforms, giving people the feeling of elite special forces. After seeing these 5 clones of Sabertooth, Richard immediately said, "One is for you, and the other 4 are for me." Okay, Sabertooth has no objection to Richard's arrangement. He is indeed not a law-abiding person, but he is not arrogant. Although he has not fought with his clones yet, it is clear that these clones have the same abilities as him. If there is any advantage, it is that his combat experience is much richer than these clones. But when everyone has super self-healing ability, rich combat experience is not a particularly big advantage. Unless he has a means that the clones don't have, which can kill with one blow and quickly end the opponent's life. Otherwise, one clone can fight him to a draw, turning the battle into a protracted battle of will. After hearing the answer from the saber-toothed tiger, Richard didn't waste time and raised his hand to use the move of Zangson. As the authentic knife was swung out, 6 or 7 crescent-shaped sword chi with purple outside and white inside immediately flew towards the clones of the saber-toothed tiger. The 5 clones of the saber-toothed tiger did not stand still to resist the crescent-shaped sword chi of Zangson, but ran with their limbs like wild beasts, trying to avoid the attack of the crescent-shaped sword chi. If they were in an open field, they would indeed have a good chance of avoiding the incoming crescent-shaped sword chi. But unfortunately, they are not in an open field now, but in the corridor. Although they had tried their best to dodge the crescent-shaped sword energy, and even some mutants began to run on the wall, the crescent-shaped sword energy still accurately hit the 4 clones and passed through their bodies. The clone who was not hit by the crescent-shaped sword energy was not because his dodging skills were better than the other 4 clones, but because Richard deliberately let him go. These were all clones of Sabertooth Tiger. If he didn't spare any of them, it would be a bit unreasonable. The sharp crescent-shaped sword energy passed through the bodies of the 4 clones, splitting 2 of them in 2 and cutting them in half. As for the other 2, their hands and feet were cut off by the crescent-shaped sword energy. Although they didn't die immediately, the 4 clones lost their ability to fight. After severely injuring the 4 clones with the residual heart, Richard did not hesitate and directly performed the flash to come in front of them. Then, the authentic knife in his left hand kept swinging. Chi 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 chi. The sound of the authentic knife cutting through the flesh and blood kept ringing. In order to get rid of these 4 clones as soon as possible, Richard didn't show any mercy and directly chopped off their heads. In the comics, Wolverine had a plot where his head was chopped off but he didn't die. But Sabertooth is not Wolverine. Although both have super self-healing abilities, Sabertooth's super self-healing ability is not as strong as Wolverine's. This is also the main reason why Stryker chose to transform Wolverine instead of Sabertooth. because Sabertooth's self-healing ability can't withstand the transformation of adamantium alloy. After chopping off the heads of these 4 clones, Richard immediately used the Plunder superpower, preparing to use Plunder to confirm whether the clones whose heads were chopped off were dead. New abilities: Bone Claws, Super Self-Healing, Beast Instinct. Obtain the same type of abilities, Ability Fusion. Bone Claws, Super Self-Healing, Beast Instinct are enhanced. Super Self-Healing level is increased, current level, Alpha level. Plunder level is increased, current level, Alpha level. Plunder has also been upgraded. After seeing that both Super Self-Healing and Plundering were upgraded to Alpha level, Richard smiled with satisfaction. He was not surprised that Super Self-Healing was upgraded to Alpha level. Before killing Sabertooth's 4 clones, Super Self-Healing had been strengthened several times. Now that he had plundered 4 beta-level Super Self-Healing at one time, it would be a bit unreasonable if it could not be strengthened and upgraded to Alpha level. However, he did not expect that after Super Self-Healing was upgraded to Alpha level, Plundering was also upgraded to Alpha level. Although it was a bit unexpected, he was very satisfied with the result, because it meant that he could go back to plunder Benjamin's superpowers now. Sabertooth knew that Richard was stronger than himself, but he did not expect that Richard could kill his 4 clones in just a few seconds. Could this guy be the legendary Omega-level mutant? This thought flashed through Sabertooth's mind unconsciously. Although the concept of Omega-level mutants has been proposed for a long time, he has never heard of any mutant who has grown to the Omega level. Even Phoenix, who is regarded by the outside world as Professor X's successor, is only at the Alpha level. Professor X and Magneto both know that Phoenix has an extremely powerful power hidden in her body, but they both think that Phoenix is not yet Omega level. As for the reason, it's very simple. Because Phoenix Girl can't control the powerful power hidden in her body well now. You can deal with the remaining one slowly, I'll go upstairs to deal with the others. After saying that, Richard used Flash to leave without waiting for Sabertooth to answer. The rooftop where Benjamin was. Looking at Benjamin, who was still in a coma, Richard raised the authentic knife in his hand and swung it casually, completely ending Benjamin's life. Plunder new ability Iron Body. Get the same type of ability, Ability Fusion. Super Strength and Super Physique are strengthened. Super Strength level is increased, current level, Alpha level. Super Physique level is increased, current level, Alpha level. Update of X-Gene superpowers. Alpha, Plunder, Super Strength, Super Physique, Super Self-Healing. Beta, Flash, Bounce, Rock Body, Ion Shock Wave, Mind Isolation, Mind Charm. Delta, Energy Absorption, Telekinesis, Super 5 Senses, Beast Intuition, Bone Claws. Looking at the information panel in front of him, Richard frowned slightly. He was not surprised that the steel body was fused and strengthened, which raised the super strength and super physique to the Alpha level. But he did not expect that after the system gave the X-Gene superpowers a detailed classification, the 4 abilities of energy absorption, telekinesis, super 5 senses, and bone claws would be classified as delta. He used to think that these 4 abilities were all beta. After all, the original owners of these abilities were not ordinary people. Energy absorption, telekinesis, and super 5 senses were plundered from mutant agents. As for beast intuition and bone claws, they were plundered from the clones of saber-toothed tigers. In addition, while plundering this ability, these 2 abilities were strengthened 3 times. However, even so, in the system's evaluation system, Beast Instinct and Bone Claws are still Delta-level superpowers. Looking at the X-Gene superpowers after the system's detailed classification, Richard quickly made a decision. In the future, you can't plunder all superpowers. Superpowers of too low levels will not be of any use even if you plunder them, such as Bone Claws that have not been upgraded after strengthening 3 times. In addition, if you accidentally plunder low-level abilities such as Toad Tongue, Thorns all over the body, Acid Saliva, etc., even if you don't use them, as long as you see them on the superpower list, it will affect your mood. After closing the information panel, Richard flashed back to the second underground floor. Although the mutant agents of the operations department could not come back for a while, he did not intend to wait for them to come back idly. After flashing back to the second underground floor, he saw the saber-toothed tiger wrestling with the clone. Although they were both human, the saber-toothed tiger and the clone were wrestling together like two primitive beasts. You give me a claw, I give you a claw. You cut my throat, I will pierce your eyes. Neither the saber-toothed tiger nor his clone used any particularly sophisticated fighting skills. Compared with the clone, the saber-toothed tiger has far more combat experience and combat skills than the clone. But unfortunately, these two advantages could not allow him to quickly kill the clone in front of him. Not only that, he finally realized how annoying the enemy with super self-healing ability is. Do you need my help? After seeing the clone in front of Sabertooth Tiger, unharmed, but his clothes became tattered and bloody, Richard said to Sabertooth Tiger. No, I can handle it myself. Sabertooth Tiger quickly replied. Then you can slowly solve it yourself, I'll go to the third underground floor to take a look. After saying that, without waiting for Sabertooth Tiger to answer, Richard used Flash to come to the third underground floor. Although Sabertooth Tiger's informant did not provide information about the third underground floor, he just said that there might be some very scary things on the third underground floor. But he can now determine what is on the third underground floor. Sentinel robot. The very scary thing in the mouth of Sabertooth Tiger's informant is the Sentinel robot. This means that the third underground floor is most likely the hangar, maintenance area, monitoring room, etc. of the Sentinel robot. Richard was not wrong. As soon as he flashed to the third underground floor, the first thing that appeared in front of him was the maintenance area of the Sentinel robot. In the huge maintenance area, there are all kinds of tools and spare parts for the Sentinel robot. In addition, there are several mutant children imprisoned in the maintenance area. To be precise, they are mutant children imprisoned in metal cages like experimental mice. After seeing these mutant children, Richard, who had no good impression of the Mutant Affairs Department, hated it even more. Although mutants have superpowers that ordinary people do not have, mutants are human beings anyway. In addition, judging from the state of these mutant children and the panic expressions on their faces, they have all experienced some inhuman treatment. If nothing unexpected happens, these mutant children are sent down from the laboratory on the second floor underground. As for why these mutant children are not sent to the mutant prison, but to the Sentinel robot maintenance area on the third floor underground, the reason is not difficult to guess. These mutant children should all have good superpowers. They were sent here so that the Sentinel robots can copy their superpowers. After seeing these mutant children with panic on their faces, Richard went straight to the metal cages where they were imprisoned. Then, the authentic knife in his hand was swung out like lightning. Chi 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 chi. The sharp authentic knife easily cut off the door lock of the metal cage. Come out, it's okay. Richard said to the mutant children. The cage door lock had been cut off, and the mutant children only needed to push gently to leave the cage. But after hearing Richard's words, not only did they not come out of the cage, but they retreated to the innermost part of the cage with fear on their faces, curled up their bodies, and looked at him tremblingly. Although I don't know what these mutant children have experienced, from their current actions, they are all afraid to leave the cage. Or, they all have extremely serious psychological shadows, and instinctively resist leaving the cage. After seeing this scene, Richard hated the Mutant Affairs Department even more. He didn't think he was a good person, but he had his own bottom line. Apart from anything else, he couldn't do all kinds of horrible human experiments on mutant children. Not only that, he would not kill people everywhere like a perverted killer just because he wanted to plunder more superpowers. Looking at these mutant children with scared expressions on their faces, Richard took out the disposable mobile phone he had prepared in advance from the system space. The so-called disposable mobile phone refers to a non-contract or contract-free short-term service bundled model that can be used after recharging, and does not require any registration or contract signing. In the United States, this kind of disposable mobile phone is very common and can be purchased in supermarkets. It is not expensive and is deeply loved by illegal persons and criminals. In order to facilitate tonight's action, he and Clarice bought several disposable mobile phones when they were shopping for ingredients in the supermarket. Taking out the disposable mobile phone, Richard dialed Clarice's number. Soon, the call was connected. I am now on the third floor underground. I found several mutant children with serious psychological shadows. You open a space door and take them away. Richard said to Clarice. Okay, Clarice replied immediately. A few seconds later, an irregular elliptical space door appeared near Richard. As soon as the space gate was formed, Clarice walked out of the space gate and came to Richard. "These little guys are a little afraid of me and don't want to come out." Richard pointed at the mutant child in the cage and said to Clarice, "Yeah, leave it to me." Clarice nodded, came to one of the metal cages, and said to the mutant child inside, "Come out, we won't hurt you, we'll take you away from here." After saying that, Clarice raised her white jade-like right hand and stretched it out to the mutant child inside. Perhaps it was because her tone was gentle, or it could be because she was very beautiful and a woman. After hearing her words, the mutant child curled up in the corner of the cage, hesitated for only 2 or 3 seconds, then held Clarice's right hand and climbed out of the cage. With the first one, the next few were very simple. Without much effort, Clarice coaxed all the mutant children out of the cage. Under Richard's gaze, Clarice took these mutant children through the space gate and returned to the roof of the previous building. When the space door was closed, Richard took the authentic knife and left the maintenance area. After walking around the 3rd underground floor, he did not meet anyone except those mutant children. Not only that, he also found that many things on the 3rd underground floor had been destroyed. To be precise, they had just been destroyed not long ago. It was obvious that before he arrived, the staff on the 3rd underground floor not only evacuated in advance, but also destroyed those important data and instruments that could not be taken away. The reason why Richard knew this was because he saw the monitoring screen of the staff evacuating and destroying things in the monitoring room on the 3rd underground floor. They ran away decisively. Richard complained in his heart. Judging from the monitoring screen, the evacuated staff were not mutants. In addition, judging from their actions when they evacuated, they should have had various evacuation plans early on, and they evacuated in an orderly and unhurried manner. Although no staff were found on the 3rd underground floor, Richard did not intend to leave without doing anything. Big flame. Without any hesitation, he cast a large flame, summoned a blazing orange-red flame, and began to set fire to the 3 underground floors. Soon, various areas on the 3 underground floors were enveloped in raging fires. Under the blazing flames, various precision instruments and equipment were destroyed, and the entire 3 underground floors quickly turned into a sea of fire. After taking a look at the results of his arson, Richard used flash and returned to the 2nd underground floor, where he saw the saber-toothed tiger and the clones still fighting each other, with neither victory nor defeat. With a helpless sigh, Richard raised the authentic sword in his hand and swung it at the clone casually. Kanshin. A crescent-shaped sword energy that was purple on the outside and white on the inside flew towards the clone lightning, passing through the clone's waist like cutting off a cucumber, splitting the clone into 2. "Hurry up and get it done. I've set a fire down there, and the smoke will come up soon," Richard said to the saber-toothed tiger. If he hadn't set fire to the 3rd underground floor, he wouldn't have minded the saber-toothed tiger continuing to struggle with the clones. But not now. Thick smoke and flames from the 3rd underground floor had begun to spread toward the 2nd underground floor along the ventilation ducts and elevator shafts. If Sabertooth Tiger continues to love and kill the clones, both of them will be in a sea of fire. He didn't care if the clones ended up in the fire. But he didn't want to see the saber-toothed tiger trapped in the sea of fire. Upon hearing Richard's words, the saber-toothed tiger immediately came to the clone's upper body without any hesitation and grabbed the opponent's neck. Then, with sudden force, his hands pulled off the clone's head. Richard originally thought that after the saber-toothed tiger killed the clone, he would throw away the clone's head. Turns out, he was overthinking. After tearing off the clone's head, Sabertooth Tiger did not throw away the head in his hand, but came to him with the clone's head. "Take me to the square above." The saber-toothed tiger held up the clone's head and said to Richard. Good. Although he didn't know what the saber-toothed tiger was going to do, Richard didn't ask any more questions and directly grabbed the saber-toothed tiger's shoulder. Flash. With a thought, he and the saber-toothed tiger disappeared in an instant, returning from the second underground floor to the square in front of the office building. Arriving at the square, the saber-toothed tiger immediately came to the flagpole in the square without saying a word and put down the American flag on the flagpole. He tied the clone's head to the American flag, and then raised the clone's head and the American flag to the top of the flagpole. Forehead. Richard originally thought that the saber-toothed tiger wanted to keep the clone's head as evidence. Unexpectedly, Sabertooth Tiger actually wanted to tie the clone's head to the American flag to express his dissatisfaction. When the saber-toothed tiger was admiring his masterpiece with a satisfied expression, Richard came to him and grabbed his shoulders again. Flash. He used Flash again and led Sabertooth Tiger out of the square and back to the roof of the building where Clarice was. As soon as he arrived at the top of the building, Saber-toothed Tiger saw the mutant children who had just been rescued, and looked at Clarice with a puzzled look on his face. They were locked in a cage on the 3rd floor underground. Richard asked me to take them out, Clarice said immediately. After hearing Clarice's answer, Saber-toothed Tiger immediately looked at Richard and asked, "What are you going to do with these little guys?" "What to do with them will be discussed later. You take them back first. I have some personal matters to deal with," Richard replied. "You won't go back with us?" Clarice asked immediately. "I'll go back later." "Okay, don't waste time, you guys go first." After saying that, Richard used Flash and returned to the square in front of the office building. After seeing him return to the square after using Flash, Sabertooth Tiger and Clarice frowned at the same time. In their opinion, tonight's goal has been perfectly achieved, and there is no need to stay. Little did they know that for Richard, tonight's goal was far from being achieved. He needs to kill 12 mutant agents to complete the mission, Son of the Devil Part 2, and get Virgil's Phantom Sword. Now, he has only killed Benjamin, and there is still a long way to go before completing the mission. Although the system did not require him to complete the task tonight was the best time to complete the task. More importantly, he didn't want to make another trip. If something can be done tonight, there is no need to put it off until the next day. This is just like the code words used by Internet article authors. Many Internet article writers can clearly finish coding today's content tomorrow, but they just don't do it. They have to wait until 9 or 10 o'clock in the evening to start the full attendance defense battle. What makes people even more speechless is that the authors of these online articles have not yet saved their manuscripts, so they insist on experiencing the speed of life and death at the last moment of every day. Although the system gave him 3 days to complete the task, Richard did not intend to wait until the end of the task time to complete the task that could have been completed early in the morning. Procrastination is not a good habit. Flashing back to the square of the office building, Richard did not enter the office building to hunt down ordinary staff, nor did he plan to set fire to the office building. Instead, he came to the wreckage of the Sentinel robot. He simply placed and organized the remains of the Sentinel robot, and made himself a throne, composed of the remains of the Sentinel robot. Afterwards, he inserted the authentic sword next to the throne, and sat down with the golden sword, waiting for the arrival of other mutant agents. While the mutant agents from the operations department rushed to the Los Angeles branch, major television stations in Los Angeles also received news that the Los Angeles branch was under attack. Although there was no preparation, these TV stations immediately dispatched news helicopters and reporters to the scene. At the same time, news of the attack on the Los Angeles branch also began to circulate on the internet. Not long after, news helicopters from major television stations arrived over the Los Angeles branch. The searchlights and cameras on the news helicopter were all focused on Richard, who was sitting on the wreckage of the Sentinel robot. Not only did Richard not drive away these news helicopters, but he also hoped that the reporters on these news helicopters could broadcast the next battle live. Although this would make him a most wanted criminal by the US government and the Department of Mutant Affairs, he didn't care. In other words, on the first day he traveled to this world, he was mentally prepared that he would be famous. Unless he plans to be the dog of the US government and the Department of Mutant Affairs. Otherwise, with his character, it is only a matter of time before he goes to war with the US government and the Department of Mutant Affairs. You have to be famous early. If it comes too late, happiness won't be that great. These are the original words of a well-known female writer. Richard agrees with this. The scene of his big sword sitting on the wreckage of the Sentinel robot was quickly broadcast live. Less than a minute after the scene was live broadcast, many viewers and netizens recognized him as the hero in the video that was taken down a few days ago. Why is it him again? Didn't the Department of Mutant Affairs issue a Class A warrant for his arrest? He probably came to attack the Los Angeles branch after seeing the wanted poster. Have you noticed that his hair is much longer than it was a few days ago? Although he doesn't look as good as me, I must say that his hairstyle and hair color are very handsome. Silver hair is indeed handsome. I have decided that I will dye my hair silver tomorrow. Where are the mutant agents in the branch? Are they all dead? Why didn't anyone come out to arrest him? What I like most is watching the fight between domestic dogs and wild dogs. Are those the remains of the Sentinel robots he's sitting on? Probably not. The Sentry robot is the natural enemy of mutants. No mutant can defeat the Sentry robot. You can't even catch Magneto, but you still have the nerve to call him the natural enemy of mutants. Where are all the mutant agents in the Los Angeles branch? Is the Department of Mutant Affairs just a waste of our taxpayers' money? Even before the mutant agents from the operations department arrived, netizens had already started a heated discussion. Although the topics discussed are different, most netizens are not optimistic about Richard and feel that he is seeking his own death. There are also many mutants among the viewers and netizens watching the live broadcast. But these mutants did not participate in the discussion, but looked at Richard sitting on the remains of the Sentry robot with complicated expressions. Once upon a time, they had also imagined this kind of scene. But it's a pity that they don't have the strength or the courage of Richard, so they can only imagine it in their minds. Although the live broadcasts are now carried out by news helicopters from local TV stations in Los Angeles, the live broadcasts are not limited to Los Angeles. Viewers from other states can also watch the live broadcasts of these TV stations. As for the live broadcast online, let alone that. New York, Westchester, School for Mutants, Principal's office. Cyclops, who was wearing a jacket and jeans, knocked on the door of the office. Without waiting for Professor X's answer, he opened the door and walked in. Professor, the Los Angeles branch of the Department of Mutant Affairs has been attacked. After saying that, Cyclops picked up the TV remote control and tuned to a channel on a TV station in Los Angeles. Like other mutant viewers, Professor X, who did not recognize the remains of the Sentinel robot at first, only frowned slightly. But soon, it was discovered that what Richard was sitting on was the remains of the Sentinel robot, and a shocked expression appeared on Professor X's face. Even among the X-Men, not everyone can deal with the Sentinel robots alone. Not to mention dealing with several at the same time. As the founder of the X-Men and the Mutant School, he knows the strength of the Sentinel robots better than most mutants. Not only that, he also knew to which generation the US officials had developed the Sentinel robot. While Professor X showed a shocked expression, Cyclops' voice sounded. His name is Richard Wesley, and he is the only son of Los Angeles billionaire Roy Wesley. Roy Wesley founded a mutant organization called Crimson Manor near Los Angeles. A week ago, Roy Wesley was confirmed to be an unregistered illegal mutant and captured by agents from the Los Angeles division. A few days later, the Los Angeles branch sent 3 agents and a special team to capture Richard and other mutants in the Crimson Manor. In Santa Ana, the agents and special forces members of the Los Angeles branch were jointly killed by Richard and Victor, the saber-toothed tiger. The scene was filmed by restaurant patrons on their mobile phones and uploaded online. The uploaded videos quickly caused a stir, and although the websites quickly removed the videos, many people still saved the videos. On the same day, the Los Angeles branch issued a Class A warrant for Richard. Class A wanted order. After hearing what Cyclops said, Professor X immediately frowned. The Los Angeles branch issued a Class A wanted order a few days ago. Why didn't they notify us immediately? According to the agreement, after the Class A wanted order is issued, they should contact us as soon as possible and seek our opinions. Professor X asked Cyclops. Although he failed to prevent the issuance of the Mutant Restriction Act, he did not do nothing as rumored. The Department of Mutant Affairs and the X-Men have a non-disclosure agreement. The content of the agreement is not complicated, with only a few items. One of them is that after the Department of Mutant Affairs issues a Class A wanted order, it must notify the X-Men immediately and ask the X-Men if they want to join in the arrest. If the X-Men join in the arrest, the captured mutants will be handed over to the X-Men first, and the X-Men will confirm whether it is necessary to send them to a mutant prison. If the wanted mutant has the possibility to change his ways, it is up to the X-Men to convince him to change his ways. The reason why Professor X added this content to the agreement is very simple. Limit the power of the Ministry of Mutant Affairs, and preserve the strength of the mutant community. A-level wanted orders are second only to S-level wanted orders. Regardless of the reason why the wanted mutant is listed on the A-level wanted order, one thing can be explained, that is, the wanted mutant is the elite of the mutant community. To put it bluntly, ordinary mutants are not even qualified to be on the A-level wanted list. Cyclops sighed helplessly and said slowly, "Not only the Los Angeles branch, but also other branches of the Department of Mutant Affairs are not fulfilling their obligations in the agreement. Only after they are discovered by us, they will reluctantly send the information on the wanted target. Although Professor X has the strongest telepathic ability, he sometimes still overestimates human nature. No organization likes to have other people meddling in its internal affairs. The X-Men don't like US officials to interfere in internal affairs, and the Department of Mutant Affairs also doesn't like the X-Men to interfere in arrest missions. Even if there is an agreement, if you don't like it, you just don't like it." "How long has this been going on?" Professor X asked with a frown. "This has been the case from the time the agreement was signed to now." Cyclops replied quickly. "Has it always been like this?" Professor X's expression became more and more ugly. "Why haven't you told me all this time? I can go to the Minister of Mutant Affairs and ask him to strictly follow the agreement." Professor X continued. "Professor, it's not that we don't want to, but..." Cyclops stopped and did not say the next words. "But what?" "Scott, I don't want to use telepathy on you." Professor X frowned and said. Hearing Professor X's words, Cyclops clenched his fists unconsciously. After looking at Professor X for a few seconds, he said, "Professor, do you know how the outside world evaluates us after the Mutant Restriction Act was implemented? People now say that the X-Men are the dogs of the officialdom and will only beg for mercy from the officialdom and deal with their own people. Even the school is now said to be a dog training base, responsible for training mutants into official dogs." Normally, Cyclops would never tell Professor X this. Although he didn't quite understand why Professor X didn't strongly oppose the implementation of the Mutant Restriction Act, he chose to believe Professor X. However, as time passed, he began to doubt his original choice. He does not deny that Professor X is a good person who has dedicated his life and everything to the mutant community. But the fact now is that after the implementation of the Mutant Restriction Act, the discrimination faced by mutants has not only not decreased, but has become more serious. In other words, the emergence of the Mutant Restriction Act has turned all mutants into inferior beings. "Scott, do you also think that I made a mistake back then and should not have agreed to the implementation of the bill?" Professor X looked at Cyclops and asked seriously. "I don't know, I really don't know. All I know now is that the discrimination faced by mutants has become more serious, the reputation of the X-Men has deteriorated, and there are fewer and fewer students in the school. I also know that after seeing the video of Richard killing the agents and Special Forces members of the Los Angeles branch and the live broadcast now, I don't think he is heinous, and I even feel a little sympathetic to him. Before coming to the office, I briefly checked the information about their father and son in the database. The father and son did nothing bad except not registering in accordance with the law. Not only that, Roy Wesley is also a well-known philanthropist in Los Angeles. He has done a lot of good things in Los Angeles, established charity funds to help disadvantaged groups, and is often enthusiastic about charity and donations. Even after he established the Crimson Manor, he did not let the people of the Crimson Manor do any extreme and vicious things. He just silently took the mutants in need of help into the manor and took care of them. Although his son Richard Wesley is a second-generation rich man, he is not as debauched as other second-generation rich people. He doesn't even have a sports car to his name, only an ordinary Ford car. What's the result? Roy Wesley was arrested, Richard Wesley was wanted, and all assets in the names of their father and son were seized and frozen. Are the two fathers and sons involved in drug trafficking? Or in human trafficking? Or are they secretly supporting terrorists? No, nothing. They just want to live an ordinary life and help people in need. To be honest, if it were me, Richard Wesley, I would probably go even further than him now. Professor X did not expect that Cyclops, who had always been so steady, would become so excited now. In addition, he also heard from Cyclops's words his strong dissatisfaction with the Mutant Restriction Act. In other words, strong dissatisfaction with the status quo. After a few seconds of silence, Professor X said to Cyclops, "Go and notify Chin, Logan, and Aurora. You guys will go to Los Angeles immediately and bring back Richard and Victor. If people from the Ministry of Mutant Affairs stop you, tell them that this is my decision, Charles Xavier. If they are dissatisfied, let their minister come to me personally." Cyclops was stunned for a moment and looked at Professor X with surprise. He thought that after he said such words, Professor X would tell him some great truths. For example, the necessity of mutant registration, the existence of the Department of Mutant Affairs as to allow mutants and humans to coexist peacefully, etc. Unexpectedly, Professor, Cyclops didn't know what to say for a moment. "If you have anything to say, let's talk about it after we bring him back." Professor X looked at Cyclops with a kind face, as if he didn't care about what he just said. "Okay, I'm going to inform Chin and the others now." Cyclops nodded towards Professor X, turned and left the office. The headquarters of the Brotherhood of Mutants. Magneto's office. "This little guy is quite interesting. Judging from his appearance, he won't leave unless he kills everyone tonight. Riven, take a few people there and ask them if they are interested in joining the Brotherhood of Mutants." Magneto watched the live broadcast on TV and said to Mystique sitting next to him. After hearing Magneto's words, Mystique immediately replied, "He will not join the Brotherhood of Mutants." "Have you met him before?" Magneto looked at Mystique in confusion. "I think I've met him before. His name is Richard Wesley, and he is the son of Roy Wesley." Mystique said slowly. Roy Wesley. Magneto recalled it for a moment. His original expression appeared on his face, and he said with a smile, "It's better to take someone there. 2 months ago, he wouldn't have thought that he would awaken his superpowers, let alone that he would transform from a rich second generation with no worries about food and drink to a Class A wanted criminal. Also, please tell him something for me. As long as he joins the Brotherhood of Mutants, I will help him get back the property of the Wesley family with interest." Mystique stood up and said slowly, "I can take someone there, but I can't guarantee that I can bring him back. A mutant who can destroy 3 sentry robots cannot be forcibly brought back unless you do it yourself." After saying that, without waiting for Magneto to answer, Mystique left the office. Los Angeles branch. What Richard doesn't know now is that both Professor X and Magneto plan to send people to take him away. However, even if he knew, he wouldn't particularly care. He only cares about one thing now, and that is whether there will be 11 mutant agents coming back. He still needs to kill 11 mutant agents to complete the system's tasks. He doesn't want to have to go around looking for and hunting mutant agents in the next 2 days. When the entire Los Angeles branch was surrounded by Los Angeles police and special forces, he finally saw the mutant agents who came back. After seeing these mutant agents, he immediately started counting them. 1, 2, 3, 12, 13, 14. 14 mutant agents. After seeing that there were 14 mutant agents who had returned, Richard showed a satisfied expression. If it were other mutants, after seeing these 14 mutant agents, they might be nervous and even start to consider escaping. But he won't, because for him, the arrival of these 14 mutant agents not only means that he can get Virgil's Phantom Sword tonight, but it also means that he can plunder good superpowers in the future. Under the gaze of everyone, he stood up from the throne, made of the remains of the sentry robot, and pulled out the authentic sword stuck on the ground. After dancing a knife flower casually, he muttered silently in his heart. The hunt begins. Chapter 31. After seeing Richard stand up and pull out the genuine knife stuck in the ground, the 14 mutant agents who entered the square immediately entered the combat state. Although they had just arrived not long ago, they all received the news that Richard destroyed the Sentinel robot and severely injured Benjamin, the director of the operations department, with a strange long-range attack. Because the monitoring personnel only saw him taking away the seriously injured Benjamin, but did not see him killing Benjamin. Out of a rigorous attitude, mainly in order not to affect the fighting spirit of these mutant agents, the monitoring personnel did not tell them that Benjamin was probably dead. As a member of the operations department, these mutant agents knew very well what kind of strength Benjamin had. In addition, they also knew very well how strong the Sentinel robot, which was the trump card of the Mutant Affairs Department, was. And now, Richard destroyed 3 Sentinel robots by himself and severely injured Benjamin. Although they have not fought yet, they can be sure that Richard is the strongest enemy they have faced since joining the operations department. If at the beginning, they still thought that Benjamin was making a big deal about Richard's A-level wanted order. Now, not only did they not have such thoughts, but they also felt that Benjamin still underestimated Richard. Richard, who was able to destroy 3 Sentinel robots by himself and severely injure Benjamin, has the qualifications to ask the Mutant Affairs Department to issue an S-level wanted order. After all, Magneto only destroyed 5 Sentinel robots by himself at the beginning. Even if Richard's current strength is not as good as Magneto, and he has not made a big event that shocked the United States and the world like Magneto. But just looking at his performance tonight, he is qualified to be on the S-level wanted order. After seeing that these 14 mutant agents did not have the idea of actively launching an attack, Richard did not hesitate and immediately performed Flash, coming to the front of 2 of the mutant agents like a ghost. 8 Swords Flash. He did not perform earth-shaking and eye slash, but performed Sephiroth's signature skill 8 Swords Flash. 8 smooth, lightning-fast slashes were slashed out in an instant. Chi. After seeing Richard disappear from sight, the 2 mutant agents were alert and prepared to be attacked by Richard at any time. However, when Richard used Flash to come in front of them and performed 8 Knives Flash, they still had no time to do anything and could only watch the authentic knife cut through their bodies. Did he really just awaken his superpowers? At the last moment of their lives, the same question flashed through the minds of the 2 mutant agents. Then, they fell down with a face full of reluctance and shock. To be precise, they turned into large and small pieces of corpses and fell to the ground in the square. Seeing Richard kill 2 mutant agents in an instant, whether it was the remaining mutant agents, the reporters on the news helicopter, or the audience watching the live broadcast, they all showed shocked expressions. In front of Richard, the 2 mutant agents who were killed were just like 2 ordinary people with slow reactions. They stood there motionless and let him attack them. No resistance, no evasion, and even no obvious movements. This is unscientific. How is this possible? He must have used invisible superpowers. After seeing these 2 mutant agents being easily killed by Richard without doing anything, the audience who thought Richard would definitely not be able to leave the Los Angeles branch alive tonight showed unbelievable expressions. They can accept that the mutant agents were defeated by Richard, but they cannot accept that the mutant agents were easily killed by Richard without doing anything. For those who believe in the Department of Mutant Affairs and discriminate against mutants, this scene in front of them is equivalent to completely destroying their long-standing concepts. If it weren't for the fact that the mutant agents on the scene couldn't hear their shouting and cursing through the screen, they would definitely greet the mutant agents on the scene with the most unpleasant language, asking if they would only waste taxpayers' money. The audience watching the live broadcast could not accept the scene in front of them, and the mutant agents on the scene could not accept it even more. Not only that, after seeing Richard kill 2 companions as easily as crushing ants, they all couldn't help but have an indescribable instinctive fear. The mutant agents with relatively weak wills even had the idea of leaving here immediately and resigning. Although the treatment of the Mutant Affairs Department is very good, even several times that of ordinary police officers. But no matter how good the treatment is, you have to be alive to enjoy it. If you die, even if the Mutant Affairs Department gives you more pensions, it has nothing to do with them. Richard can't telepathize. However, after seeing the expressions on the faces of these mutant agents, he knew that these mutant agents had an uncontrollable fear. After discovering this, he did not continue to attack other mutant agents, but spoke to them. I have been thinking about what gift to give you, so as to repay the Mutant Affairs Department for issuing a Class A wanted order for me. Now, I have the answer. I will give you despair. In order to let the mutant agents present hear his words clearly, and also to let the news helicopter broadcast his words, Richard deliberately used the magic trick he had just mastered a few days ago, so that his voice could be clearly heard by everyone at the scene and broadcast. Despair. Hearing Richard's words, the mutant agents present had as ugly expressions as they could. If their strength allowed, they would definitely take action to show that they did not like the gift given by Richard without saying anything. But unfortunately, they did not have such strength. Although these mutant agents did not answer him, Richard did not intend to waste time. Flash. Under the gaze of everyone, he disappeared again. The next second, he came behind a female agent with good looks, a curvy figure, and a big golden wave. Swish! The authentic knife was swung out with lightning, and the female agent's head flew high, ending her life unexpectedly. After killing the female agent, Richard did not continue to perform the flash, but performed a big flame. Flame-high wall. As the big flame was cast, a fire wall composed of blazing flames and more than 10 meters high appeared out of thin air, surrounding the entire square. The blazing wall is not an additional skill, but a derivative skill of the big flame. Whether it is a fire wall, a fireball, or a fire column, it can be cast with the big flame. After seeing the blazing wall of fire instantly surround the square, both the mutant agents on the scene and the audience watching the live broadcast guessed his intention. Close the door and beat the dog. Although Richard's intention was guessing it does not mean that he can be stopped. Surrounding the square with a blazing wall of fire can prevent these mutant agents from escaping on the one hand, and prevent the Los Angeles police and special forces outside from shooting him from a distance on the other hand. Under the gaze of countless spectators, Richard began the final finishing work. Or, the final killing. 8 swords flashed, shaking the earth, slash, thunder and lightning, blizzard, flame, dimensional slash. Flash, bounce, ion shock wave, mind moving. He used one skill after another and X-gene superpowers, like the god of death descending from hell, madly harvesting the lives of mutant agents. Lightning, blizzard, flame intertwined. Blood splashed, broken limbs scattered all over the ground. Thunder, explosion, scream. Richard, holding an authentic sword, staged an unforgettable killing feast in front of countless audiences. The killing feast directed by Richard himself did not last long. To be precise, it only lasted just over a minute. Although it didn't last long, viewers who saw him killing mutant agents like crazy felt like they were watching a restricted-level bloody horror movie. The TV station that broadcast the scene immediately blurred the scene and did not clearly broadcast the tragic death of the mutant agent. But even so, viewers watching the live broadcast can still vaguely see how bloody and terrifying the scene is. Not only that, many viewers watching the live broadcast also felt nauseous and felt like the food in their stomachs was constantly churning. The originally lively webcast discussion area was now extremely quiet, with no new comments or barrages posted. In particular, netizens who had previously posted mocking comments and barrages began to delete their previous comments and barrages. Although it was unlikely that Richard would go after them because they posted mocking comments and barrages, these netizens still started deleting them with a tacit understanding. If we talk about it before, they still watched the live broadcast with the mentality of watching the excitement, wanting to see the scene of Richard being taught a particularly hard lesson by the mutants. So now, after seeing Richard harvesting the lives of mutant agents like the Grim Reaper, they all came up with their own ignorant thoughts. Richard had obviously destroyed several Sentinel robots, and was sitting calmly in the square waiting for other mutant agents to come over. This is enough to show that he is absolutely sure to deal with the mutant agents who are coming. Under such circumstances, he actually felt that the mutant agents who arrived could give him a severe lesson. This is no longer a question of whether you have thought of it, but pure ignorance. Other mutants suffered discrimination and had to accept the requirements of the Mutant Restriction Act to register, because those mutants themselves had little strength. Obviously, Richard is not one of those mutants with mutated appearance and low strength. Is this the strength of top mutants? Are all the people in the Los Angeles branch idiots? Why bother with such a dangerous mutant? Netizens who deleted the mocking comments and barrages unconsciously complained about the agents of the Los Angeles branch. Richard would not have thought that after seeing the live broadcast of his crazy killing of mutant agents, those netizens who originally planned to watch his excitement would immediately start deleting the comments he posted. He never imagined that these netizens would turn around and complain about the agents of the Los Angeles branch. After killing the 14 mutant agents who arrived, he did not immediately flash away, but began to plunder the superpowers of these mutant agents. Although some mutant agents were killed by him without even releasing their superpowers. For example, the 2 mutant agents and the blonde female agent who were killed by him at the beginning. But even if they don't use their superpowers, they still know that their superpowers won't be that bad. The mutants who can join the Department of Mutant Affairs as agents of the Operations Department are not too weak. Apart from anything else, most of them will have a beta-level ability that they can use. Even if he doesn't have beta-level superpowers, he will definitely have a very good delta-level ability. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the Department of Mutant Affairs to recruit them. After completing the plunder, he did not stay where he was to browse the information given by the system. Instead, he used Flash to leave the square and disappeared from people's sight. As he left, the huge wall of fire surrounding the square began to disappear. It didn't take long for the wall of fire to completely disappear. However, the Los Angeles police and special forces outside still did not enter the square immediately. After a few minutes, after confirming that he had completely left, they cautiously entered the square and began to collect the bodies of the dead mutant agents. Sabertooth's apartment. After performing more than 20 flashes in succession, Richard finally returned to Sabertooth Tiger's apartment. Apartment living room. After seeing him come back, Sabertooth Tiger immediately came to him and said to him, "What you call a private matter is to drive away all the mutant agents in the operations department." "Any questions?" Richard asked back about the Saber-toothed tiger. After hearing his answer, Saber-toothed Tiger frowned and said, "I admit that you are very strong, but if you do this, it will only make the Department of Mutant Affairs send stronger agents to capture you." Of course, Richard knew that his actions tonight would attract a strong blow from the Department of Mutant Affairs, but he did not take it to heart and said unhurriedly, "Whether I have killed all the agents from the Los Angeles Division Operations Department, the Ministry of Mutant Affairs won't let me go." "Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. With your connections, you should be able to find the contact information of the mutant school. Contact them and ask them to pick up these little guys." As soon as he finished speaking, Sabertooth Tiger quickly said, "As soon as I got back to the apartment, I already contacted people I knew, and they already sent me the phone number of the mutant school." "Then what are you waiting for? Don't tell me you plan to adopt these little guys." Richard looked at the saber-toothed tiger in confusion. "They've already sent someone over. To be precise, they had already set off before I contacted them." At this point, Saber-toothed Tiger's expression became a little strange. Although he said it tactfully, Richard immediately heard the subtext in his words. "I understand, they are coming for me. Now that the matter in the Los Angeles branch has come to an end, it's time for everyone to part ways." After saying that, Richard was about to use Flash and leave. At this moment, Clarice's voice sounded. "They are not here to catch you, they just want you to go to school and meet Professor X." "No need, I have no plans to meet them for the time being. Let's go now. Let's meet again when we have a chance. By the way, your Chinese food is very good, I like it very much," Richard said to Clarice. Then, Shizan flashed and disappeared from their sight. Suburbs of Los Angeles. A house with a for sale sign on the door. Richard sat on the sofa in the living room and called up the system's information panel. Acquire new abilities. Super strength, super speed, super self-healing, energy absorption, attack diversion, air bombs, creating illusions, hurricane control, invisibility, supervision, mental whip, hypnotic suggestion. Acquire the same type of abilities, ability fusion. Super strength, super physique, super self-healing, energy absorption, and supervision are enhanced. Manipulation of hurricanes can be converted into the skill, Big Wind. Is it converted? Without any hesitation, Richard decisively chose, yes. Skill Great Wind Awakens. Big Strong Wind Level 1/0/100. X-Gene Super Power Content Update. Alpha Level. Plunder, Super Strength, Super Physique, Super Self-Healing. Beta Level. Flash, Bounce, Rock Body, Ion Shock Wave, Mind Isolation, Mind Charm, Attack Transfer, Air Bomb, Illusion Creation, Invisibility, Supervision, Mental Whip, Hypnotic Suggestion. Delta Level. Energy Absorption, Mind Movement, Beast Intuition, Bone Claws. Looking at the updated list of X-Gene superpowers, Richard smiled with satisfaction. Although he did not plunder alpha-level superpowers, his gains this time were still considerable. Not to mention that super strength, super physique, and super self-healing have been strengthened again. The energy absorption of the Delta class has also been strengthened. Not only that, the new ability he just acquired, Supervision, also absorbed and fused the 5 senses that were originally Delta level, making him one less Delta level ability. In addition to the newly acquired Supervision, the 6 abilities of attack transfer, air bomb, illusion creation, invisibility, mental whip, and hypnotic suggestion are also good abilities. Richard leaned on the back of the sofa and slowly browsed the introduction of these 7 new abilities. Supervision, telescopic vision and perspective. Attack transfer. You can transfer the attack directed at you to other directions, making the attack miss or deflect. Air bullet. Compress the air to create air bullets with power and speed that are not inferior to assault rifles, which can be fired continuously. Invisibility. Optical invisibility. Creating illusions. Use the power of the mind to make the enemy hallucinate. Spirit whip. Use the power of the mind to directly attack the target's mind, making the target feel pain from the mental level, and the body will also feel like being shocked by a strong current. Hypnotic suggestion. Hypnotize the target through the power of the mind, or leave an imperceptible psychological suggestion to the target, so that the target will unconsciously follow your own arrangements. As usual, the introduction given by the system is very simple. However, this is enough for Richard to know the advantages and disadvantages of these 7 new abilities. First of all, these 7 superpowers are all beta-level superpowers, which are not low in level. Secondly, these 7 superpowers can play a good role at a specific time. Finally, what surprised him the most was that among the 7 superpowers plundered this time, 3 of them were superpowers in the mental field. In addition to the mental isolation and mental charm he had before, he now has a total of 5 superpowers in the mental field. If we only look at the number, the mental superpowers he has now are not few. But unfortunately, these 5 mental superpowers combined are not as good as Professor X. To be precise, let alone compared with Professor X, there is still a big gap even compared with the White Queen of the Hellfire Club. Although it is not as good as it is now, Richard firmly believes that as long as he continues to plunder the superpowers in the mental field, sooner or later he will become a psychic who is not inferior to Professor X. Not only that, his intuition tells him that as long as he plunders a few more superpowers in the mental field, the superpowers in the mental field such as mental isolation, mental charm, illusion creation, hypnotic suggestion, etc. will be integrated into a more comprehensive and more powerful mental power. Although this is just his intuition, he believes in his intuition. After browsing the information about the new ability, Richard began to browse the information about the system tasks. Task: Devil's Son 2 has been completed. Task reward: Phantom Sword has been sent. Obtained new weapon: Phantom Sword. Phantom Sword. A weapon derived from Virgil, a long sword condensed by magic. It is both a weapon and a skill. The system's introduction to the Phantom Sword is as short as ever. However, for Richard, who already knows what the Phantom Sword is, even if the system does not explain it, he knows very well what abilities the Phantom Sword has and how to use it. Unlike Dante, Virgil does not like to use firearms. So, the Phantom Sword became Virgil's main means of long-range attack. Although it is a sword, Virgil will not use the Phantom Sword for close combat, but will launch the Phantom Sword as a flying sword. In addition to being used to attack enemies from a distance, the Phantom Sword also has some additional special effects. For example, restraining enemies, and grabbing objects to teleport yourself or enemies. It goes without saying that restraining the enemy is used to restrict the enemy's movement. As for grabbing objects to teleport yourself or the enemy, it is a teleportation ability similar to Flash. However, unlike Flash, the teleportation of the Phantom Sword has certain limitations. For example, the Phantom Sword itself needs to be used as a carrier. When the Phantom Sword hits the enemy, you can choose to teleport yourself to the enemy, or you can choose to let the enemy teleport to yourself. From another perspective, the Phantom Sword is a bit like the Flying Thunder God technique, with reverse teleportation function. In the game, the Phantom Sword can also be used as a skill, and has several sword formations with different functions and effects. But the system did not divide the Phantom Sword into skills, but divided it into weapons. For Richard, this is not only not a bad thing, but a good thing. Because it means that he only needs to adjust the size of the magic output to make the Phantom Sword play different speeds and powers. After recalling the various sword formations of the Phantom Sword in his mind, Richard turned off the information panel and immediately began to summon the Phantom Sword. Although they are both weapons, it is obvious that the Phantom Sword condensed by magic power is very different from the authentic sword. The authentic sword is a real physical long sword. Whether it is used or not, the authentic sword will not disappear. But the phantom sword is different. Because it is a long sword condensed by magic power, the phantom sword cannot last as long as the authentic sword. When the magic power condensed by the phantom sword is exhausted, or the phantom sword is launched as a flying sword, a new phantom sword needs to be condensed again. Although it has not been long since he got the phantom sword, the moment he got the phantom sword, Richard has mastered the method of condensing the phantom sword. With a thought, the magic power in his body was consumed, and a phantom sword more than 1 meter long and emitting azure light appeared in his hand. Looking at the phantom sword that is exactly the same as in his memory, Richard stood up, holding the phantom sword in his right hand, and waved it in the living room. Although Virgil only used the phantom sword as a long-range attack method, it does not mean that he must do the same as Virgil. Anyway, the phantom sword is still a sword, and it can be used in close combat. Although its sharpness cannot be compared with that of an authentic sword, it is not weaker than a metal long sword. With the skills of using an authentic sword, he used the phantom sword in his right hand smoothly and skillfully, without any discomfort. If there is any difference, it is that the length of the phantom sword is much shorter than that of the authentic sword, and he needs to readapt to the attack distance. However, this is not a difficult task for him. After practicing in the living room for a few minutes, he performed a flash and left the living room with the phantom sword. After flashing several times in succession, he came to a park only 2 or 3 kilometers away from the house. This is a very ordinary small park, and the area is not very large. Because of the night, there was no one in the park. After flashing to the park, he looked at a big tree about 70 or 80 meters away from him. Without any hesitation, he raised his right hand and flicked it lightly, and the phantom sword flew towards the tree like a flying sword. Whoosh! The phantom sword passed through the air like a blue laser, leaving a fleeting blue line. In just a moment, the phantom sword pierced the tree accurately. Then, it passed through the trunk and hit another tree dozens of meters away, with more than half of the sword body immersed in the tree trunk. After seeing this scene, Richard did not hesitate and immediately used the teleportation ability of the phantom sword. The next second, he teleported in front of the tree just like using Flash. On the surface, Flash and the teleportation of the phantom sword are exactly the same, but he soon discovered the difference between the two. Let's not talk about the essential difference. From the perspective of teleportation alone, the teleportation of the phantom sword is a little faster than Flash. This fast does not mean that the teleportation speed of the phantom sword is faster, but that the teleportation of the phantom sword does not have the so-called skill pre-swing time. As long as he has the idea of teleportation in his mind, he can teleport to the phantom sword in the first time. When performing Flash, there will be a very short startup time, which has no effect in normal times, but can easily become a fatal weakness in ultra-high-speed battles. Although this time can be captured and there will not be many enemies that can be damaged in this short time of only a few tenths of a second, this is still a weakness of Flash. Anessa, who was killed by him with 8 swords in a flash in the restaurant parking lot, is a good example. After experiencing the difference between the teleportation of the phantom sword and the Flash, Richard did not immediately return to the unmanned house for sale, but continued to practice the phantom sword in the park. Being able to use it and being able to use it skillfully are two completely different things. In order to familiarize himself with the use of the phantom sword in different situations as soon as possible, he felt that he needed to practice it well. Because if nothing unexpected happens, starting tomorrow, he will become the most wanted criminal on the wanted list of the Department of Mutant Affairs, second only to Magneto. When he was practicing the phantom sword in the unmanned small park, Cyclops and Storm were driving the iconic Blackbird fighter of the X-Men towards Los Angeles at full speed. At the same time, Mystique also rushed to Los Angeles with several members of the Brotherhood of Mutants. The next day, in the morning, Richard woke up slowly in the master bedroom of the house he was selling. Although it was not yet 8 o'clock, he knew it was time for him to leave. Because after work, the real estate agent responsible for selling the house would bring groups of guests. After taking out towels, toothbrushes, toothpaste, shampoo, shower gel and other toiletries from the system space, he went straight to the bathroom and started washing up. Half an hour later, after washing up and changing into clean clothes, he flashed out of the house. He did not leave Los Angeles immediately, but flashed to a nearby neighborhood and found a pretty good chain restaurant. After putting on a baseball cap and sunglasses and a simple disguise, he walked in calmly and ordered a few common breakfasts from the waiter. Coffee, fried eggs, bacon, hot dogs, bread. Richard enjoyed the breakfast in front of him while watching the morning news on the restaurant TV. As expected, his killing spree in the Los Angeles branch last night made him a headline figure in major news channels and newspapers. The experts invited by the TV station analyzed his actions last night eloquently. The spokespersons of the Mutant Affairs Department and other official agencies also vowed to arrest him in the shortest possible time. While watching the news, he took out a disposable mobile phone from the system space and searched his name on the internet. As he guessed, there were reports about him everywhere on the internet. 65 people died. Illegal mutants attacked the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department. Horrible live broadcast. The Los Angeles branch has become a living hell. Is it revenge or provocation? Illegal mutants are killing people. From a rich second generation to a murderer, what kind of person is Richard Wesley? The vulnerable, natural enemy of mutants. The safety promised by the Mutant Affairs Department is gone. The bloody killing of illegal mutants. The birth of the silver-haired devil. After a brief look at these reports, Richard logged into the local forum in Los Angeles. As soon as he entered the forum, he saw a large number of posts related to him. After quickly flipping through a few pages, he unexpectedly discovered that the killing spree in the Los Angeles branch last night actually gave him a group of fanatical fans. These fanatical fans not only commented and left messages crazily in various posts, but also set up websites and forums about him in just one night. In addition, they also gave him several different nicknames. Silver-haired Death God, Los Angeles Sword Master, Silver Samurai, Angel of Death, Seraph, Dominator. After seeing the nicknames given to him by these fanatical fans and the logos of websites and personal forums designed in their own images, Richard shook his head helplessly. Although he was not very clear about who these fanatical fans of his were, judging from their unscrupulous comments on the forum and attacks on netizens who accused him of being too cruel, they should all be ordinary people. Because of the existence of the Mutant Restriction Act, both legal mutants who have been registered and illegal mutants who have not been registered are forced to live a low-key life. Of course, those illegal mutants and organizations such as the Mutant Brotherhood who are afraid of chaos in the world are exceptions. After browsing the websites and personal forums established by these fanatical fans for a few minutes, he put the disposable phone back into the system space. If he were a star or an internet celebrity, he would be very happy that he had a group of fanatical fans. But he is not a star or an internet celebrity. Today, he is an S-level wanted criminal of the Mutant Affairs Department. When browsing the news just now, he found that the Mutant Affairs Department headquarters had raised the level of his wanted order, changing him from an A-level wanted criminal to an S-level wanted criminal. Not only that, he also saw that the Mutant Affairs Department headquarters had given a high reward of $1 million in the wanted order. If you capture or kill him alive, you can get $1 million. Even if you just give reliable information, you can get a reward ranging from $5,000 to $30,000. In addition, I don't know if it is to stimulate him to show up on his own initiative, the Mutant Affairs Department headquarters also publicly issued a statement that the illegal gains of the Wesley family will be publicly auctioned in 3 days. Including but not limited to the Wesley family's ancestral home, collections, land under their names, etc. If it was the original body, he would definitely be angry when he saw that the Mutant Affairs Department was going to auction off the Wesley family's property and collections. But Richard is not the original body. Less than an hour after crossing into this world, he disbanded the Crimson Manor, established by the original body's father, and personally set fire to the main building of the manor. The people in the Mutant Affairs Department wanted to use such an extremely conspicuous provocation to stimulate him to appear. It can only be said that the people in the Mutant Affairs Department thought too much. In addition to the fact that he is not the original body and has no sense of belonging to the Wesley family, there is another reason why he doesn't care at all. That is, no matter how the Mutant Affairs Department confiscates and auctions the Wesley family's property, he will make the Mutant Affairs Department and the U.S. government return it with interest in the future. After breakfast, Richard was about to check out and leave when 4 strangers, 1 woman and 3 men, who had never seen him before, came to him. "Can I sit here?" the blonde, blue-eyed, curvy woman who looked to be in her early 20s said to him. "Whatever, I'm going to pay the bill and leave anyway." Richard took out a few dozen dollars from his pocket and put them on the table. "Is it because I don't look like you?" "Richard Wesley," the blonde woman said in a voice that only the 2 of them could hear. After hearing the blonde woman say his name, Richard's first reaction was to summon the authentic knife to kill her. However, after seeing the blonde woman's pupil color instantly change from green to blue, he temporarily gave up the idea of killing her. Because he had recognized the identity of this blonde woman. "Mystique, did Magneto ask you to come?" Richard said to Mystique. Since he already knew that the blonde beauty in front of him was Mystique, it was not difficult to guess the identities of the other 3 men. "Can't it be that I want to see you?" Mystique asked back. "If you are going to say this nonsense to me, then I think there is no need for us to continue chatting." Although Mystique's current image is undoubtedly a beauty, Richard will not have any interest in her when he thinks of her original appearance and age. From the perspective of superpowers, Mystique is undoubtedly a variable witch. Having her is equivalent to having all kinds of beauties. But as long as he thinks that she is the same age as Professor X, and that she is blue all over and has some body tissues like lizard scales, he will not have any worldly desire for Mystique. He is not a superficial man who only looks at appearance. In addition to appearance, he also cares about the inner of a woman. After hearing Richard's words, Mystique frowned immediately. Although she had never met Richard before, she had only met the father of her original body. But in her opinion, a boy of Richard's age is as easy to control as possible, and it is impossible for him to resist her charm. Take the image she has transformed into now. This is a new image that combines the advantages of several Hollywood first-line female stars. Not to mention seducing a boy of Richard's age, even seducing those middle-aged uncles with rich life experience is enough. After all, the Hollywood female stars she chose are all beauties that are strongly sought after by American men. Unexpectedly, the new image she carefully designed did not move Richard at all. Whether a man is interested in the woman in front of him can be seen by looking at his eyes without looking at other things. And in Richard's eyes now, she did not see any signs that Richard was interested in her. Could he like men? This thought flashed through Mystique's mind unconsciously. In the United States, same gender is not a rare thing. Not only that, the law of the United States also allows same-gender marriage. When the thought, "Richard likes men," came to her mind unconsciously, the look in Mystique's eyes when she looked at Richard became a little different. Although she can also transform into a handsome man, she does not intend to do so at this time. Transformation is transformation. Her orientation will not change with the transformation of appearance. Transformation into a beautiful woman to seduce men, she is very good at it. Transformation into a man to seduce men, she is not very acceptable, and she can't get over it in her heart. Of course, if she transforms into a beautiful woman to seduce another beautiful woman, she can still accept it. After looking at Richard for a few seconds, she continued. "Eric asked me to come. He asked me to come and ask if you are interested in joining the Brotherhood of Mutants. In addition, he also asked me to tell you that as long as you join the Brotherhood of Mutants, he will help you get back the property of the Wesley family with interest." Mystique didn't intend to waste time, and directly told the purpose of her trip and Magneto's promise. Hearing what Mystique said, Richard smiled and shook his head. "I don't plan to join any mutant organization now, whether it is the Brotherhood of Mutants or the X-Men. In addition, I don't need anyone else to help me get back the property of the Wesley family. I will get back what I lost myself." Richard looked at Mystique with confidence. Although he doesn't have the strength to go to war with the US government and the Department of Mutant Affairs, as long as he is given enough time to develop. Not to mention the US government and the Mutant Affairs Department, even if he was dealing with the 3 major empires of the universe, the Shi'ar Empire, the Kree Empire, and the Skrull Empire, he was absolutely sure. "I admit that you are stronger than many people. After all, you killed all the mutant agents of the Los Angeles branch alone. But you have to know that the Los Angeles branch is just one of the dozens of branches of the Mutant Affairs Department. Just because you can deal with the mutant agents of the Los Angeles branch doesn't mean you can deal with the entire Mutant Affairs Department. More importantly, the X-Men will not sit idly by. As far as I know, they arrived in Los Angeles last night and are now looking for your whereabouts. Mystique was not surprised that Richard did not immediately agree to join the Brotherhood of Mutants. Or, if Richard agreed without saying anything, she would feel something was wrong. Generally speaking, a mutant who has strong strength at a young age will have an instinctive arrogance. Let's not talk about the distant past. John Allardyce, the fireman, who just joined the Brotherhood of Mutants, is a good example. If John, fireman, was just a little rebellious when he was in the mutant school, then after joining the Brotherhood of Mutants, he was not rebellious, but had the arrogant idea that humans were inferior creatures. Not only that, he also deliberately changed his name, adding a Saint in front of his name, from John Allardyce to Saint John Allardyce. I'm not so arrogant that I can deal with the Department of Mutant Affairs now. However, I still don't plan to join the Brotherhood of Mutants, at least not now. I appreciate Magneto's kindness, Richard continued. Joining the Brotherhood of Mutants can indeed get Magneto's help, but for now, he doesn't want to owe Magneto a favor. The most important thing is that, as far as he knows, Magneto doesn't know that he has several children. To put it simply, Scarlet Witch Wanda and Polaris Lorna are not in the Brotherhood of Mutants now. If they were here, it would not be impossible to join the Brotherhood of Mutants now. But unfortunately, they are not here now. As for where they are now, Richard is not sure. This universe is very different from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the X-Men Cinematic Universe he is familiar with, and the prophetic advantage of the time traveler is greatly affected here. After seeing the resolute expression on Richard's face, Mystique sighed and said slowly, "I've already said this. Since you don't want to join the Brotherhood of Mutants now, let's stop here." After saying this, Mystique stood up and prepared to leave the restaurant with the three mutants next to her. However, she stopped after just a few steps, turned back to Richard, deliberately bent over to reveal the abyss and snow-capped mountains on her chest, and said to him in a seductive and charming tone, "I won't leave Los Angeles until tomorrow. If you change your mind or feel bored at night, you can come to the hotel to find me." As Mystique said this, she took out a hotel business card from her jacket pocket and handed it to Richard. Although Mystique said it very tactfully, Richard knew what her subtext was. Or, he knew what Mystique was planning. Richard did not take the business card handed over by Mystique, and said slowly, "No need, I'm not interested in old ladies. I'm not interested in women who are much older than me." He originally wanted to say old women, but after thinking about it, he changed to a more euphemistic way of saying it. But even so, Mystique's expression still became cold as ice. Although she is not an ordinary woman, she is like other women, and she cares about others talking about her age. Considering the difference in strength between the two sides, Mystique suppressed her anger and glared at Richard fiercely. Then, she left the restaurant with the three mutants. After Mystique and the other four left, Richard also paid the bill and left the restaurant, finding a place where he would not be disturbed to practice his skills, and strive to upgrade all his current skills to level 3 as soon as possible. However, not long after leaving the restaurant, the mind isolation ability sent a strong warning. Someone is using telepathy to lock his position. After discovering this, several names immediately flashed through Richard's mind. Is it Professor X, or Phoenix, or the White Queen of the Hellfire Club? Although there are more than 3 mutants with telepathic abilities, in this timeline, they are the most famous. Mind isolation can only isolate him from the influence of telepathic abilities to a certain extent, and cannot allow him to reversely track who is using telepathy on him. Without any hesitation, he immediately used the Flash. To be precise, he used the Flash continuously. Flash is not a psychic ability, but using the Flash to change the position can effectively prevent the psychic from locking himself. Not long after, he came to the forest dozens of kilometers away from Los Angeles. Although he had left Los Angeles, it was not long before the telepathy performed by someone unknown locked his position again. It's endless, right? Richard cursed in his heart. Although he didn't know who was using telepathy to lock his position, he was sure of one thing, that is, he was very unhappy now. If he didn't have the ability of mind isolation, which could avoid the invasion of telepathy to a certain extent, he would not be able to find out that someone was using telepathy on him. Not only that, if he didn't have the ability of mind isolation, even if a psychic read his memory or tampered with his subconscious, he would not be aware of it. Whether it was locked by telepathy, or his memory was read or his subconscious was tampered with, he didn't like it very much. Because it would make him feel that his secrets and privacy were being checked. After thinking for a few seconds, Richard did not continue to use Flash to transfer his position, but sat down on a large rock nearby, took out the authentic knife from the system space, wiped the authentic knife, and waited for the other party to arrive. Time passed little by little. In less than 10 minutes, a black fighter with a very sci-fi feature appeared in his sight. Blackbird fighter. The moment he saw the Blackbird fighter, he knew who had just performed telepathy on him. The host of the Phoenix Force. Phoenix Girl. After seeing the Blackbird fighter circling over the forest and looking for a suitable landing place, Richard put away his authentic knife and used Flash before the Blackbird fighter landed. The next second, he came to the cabin of the Blackbird fighter while sitting on a big rock. There were many people sitting in the cabin, which was not particularly spacious. In addition to Phoenix, Richard also saw Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm, Sabertooth, Clarice, and the mutant children rescued from the third underground floor last night. Whether it was Phoenix and Wolverine, or Cyclops and Storm, they were all similar to his memory. Glancing at everyone, he said to Phoenix, "I don't like others to use telepathy on me. If someone tries to invade my brain, I will do my best to kill the other party." Although Phoenix just used telepathy to lock his position and did not invade his brain, he still felt that it was necessary to remind Phoenix. As soon as he finished speaking, Wolverine, who was sitting next to Phoenix, stood up with an impolite look on his face, walked straight to him, and said to him fiercely, "Boy, speak politely, Jean just wants to know where you are." Although Phoenix's boyfriend is not him, but Cyclops who is driving the Blackbird fighter. But after hearing what Richard said, Wolverine still warned Richard immediately, as if he was Phoenix's boyfriend. "You were the first to be impolite. Victor and Clarice have already told you that I don't want to see you. Using telepathy to lock a person who doesn't want to see you, is this the style of the X-Men?" Richard looked at Wolverine with a bad expression calmly, and said slowly, "In terms of strength, Wolverine is much stronger than Sabertooth. But he is only stronger than Sabertooth. Even if he has adamantium, Richard has dozens of ways to defeat him. It would be a little more troublesome to kill him completely, but it can also be done." Wolverine, who was not a gentle uncle, became even more rude after hearing Richard's words. Just as he tried to grab Richard's collar and warn him for the last time, Phoenix's voice rang out. "Logan, don't." Hearing Phoenix's voice, Wolverine immediately put down his hands that had just been raised. After stopping Wolverine from threatening Richard, Phoenix stood up and came to Richard, saying apologetically, "It was wrong of me to use telepathy to lock your position without authorization. I apologize to you now, sorry." After seeing Phoenix apologize to him sincerely, Richard slowly said, "Forget it this time, tell me, what do you want to talk to me about? If you want me to go back to the mutant school with you, there is no need to speak. I have no intention of going to New York now. Although Professor X is not a bad person, he has no intention of dealing with Professor X now. Or, he can guess what Professor X will say after meeting. With Professor X's personality and style, he would certainly persuade him to work for the rights of the mutant community, or use his own power to help others, just like those old good guys. Phoenix and Cyclops are willing to follow Professor X's arrangements. It is their freedom, and Richard will not say anything. But he will not have the idea of joining in. Strictly speaking, as a time traveler, he has not had the idea of being an ancestor in this world, which is already considered to be a very moral level. The professor has no ill intentions, just want to meet you and talk. We are not here to arrest you, nor are we here to help the Department of Mutant Affairs. In addition, I can assure you that even if the Department of Mutant Affairs knows that you went to school with us, they will never take action against you. If you don't want to be wanted, we can also ask the Department of Mutant Affairs to cancel the S-level wanted order on you." Unlike Wolverine, when Phoenix heard Richard say that he didn't like others to use telepathy on him, he knew that he was a person who would not take hardship. In addition, she also found that Richard was not as difficult to deal with as she imagined. This can be seen from the fact that Richard took back the authentic knife before flashing into the cabin. "I don't think there is anything for me and Charles to talk about now. As for the promise you mentioned. Richard paused, pointed at the mutant children and said, I rescued them from the Sentinel robot maintenance area of the Los Angeles branch last night. Whether you know or not, just looking at their experience, it is hard for me to believe your promise. Although the X-Men did not join the Mutant Affairs Department, with their abilities, it is not difficult to know what the Mutant Affairs Department did to the captured mutants. If they really knew nothing, it only means that they don't care that much about the mutants outside. Hearing Richard's words, Phoenix fell silent. After a few seconds, she continued. They will experience these inhuman treatments, which is indeed our negligence. I know that no matter what I say now, it is difficult for you to believe us, but I still hope you. Before Phoenix finished her words, a sharp and piercing alarm suddenly sounded in the cabin. A missile has locked on us. Storm's voice rang out immediately. Missiles. After hearing Storm's words, Phoenix and Wolverine's faces suddenly became extremely ugly. They are now in the United States. This means that the missiles fired at them are either from the U.S. military or from special departments such as the Department of Mutant Affairs and S.H.I.E.L.D. The X-Men's Blackbird fighter has been registered with the government and the military, so there is no possibility of being mistaken for fighters from other countries. It seems that the X-Men are not that important in the hearts of the government and the military. Richard's voice rang out. Just as Phoenix was about to say something, he turned to Clarice and said, Open the space gate and take these little guys away from here immediately. This fighter may not be able to avoid the attack of the missile. Okay. After hearing his words, Clarice replied immediately without any hesitation. She raised her right hand and threw out a ball of purple space energy, immediately creating a space gate to the forest. As soon as the space gate was formed, Wolverine and Sabertooth picked up the mutant child in the seat and left the Blackbird through the space gate. When Richard and the others left the cabin, Storm and Cyclops immediately drove the Blackbird fighter to start a series of maneuvers to evade. They should be coming for me. If they didn't know that I was also in the fighter, they wouldn't risk completely offending Charles by attacking you with missiles. As soon as the voice fell, Richard took out the authentic knife from the system space. What are you going to do? Seeing him take out the authentic knife, Wolverine looked at him with a vigilant face and immediately stretched out his adamantium bone claws. Calm down, I'm not interested in you. I want to deal with the people on that plane. Richard raised the authentic knife and pointed it at the sky in the distance. Looking along the tip of the authentic knife, Wolverine saw nothing. Of course he couldn't see anything because his vision was blocked by the surrounding trees. Richard could see it because he had just plundered the supervision with farsightedness and perspective last night. In the direction pointed by the authentic knife, there is a black fighter that looks similar to the S.H.I.E.L.D. Quinjet, but with the logo of the Mutant Affairs Department on the fuselage. Inside this fighter, there are 3 mutant agents wearing black combat uniforms and with extremely serious expressions. It is obvious that they must be elite agents who came from other branches or headquarters of the Mutant Affairs Department. Wolverine was about to refute Richard that there were no planes in his direction, and the black fighter plane of the Mutant Affairs Department appeared in his sight. Although the distance was still a little far, a general outline could be seen. How do you know that the people on the plane are here to arrest you? Wolverine asked immediately. The combat uniforms they wear have the logo of the Mutant Affairs Department. The missile just now was launched by them as expected. After answering Wolverine, Richard turned to Phoenix and said, You just told me that you can guarantee that the people of the Mutant Affairs Department will not attack me. Now the opportunity has come, I wonder if you are interested in proving it. If you can really convince them not to attack me, I don't mind going to the mutant school with you. After hearing his words, Phoenix frowned slightly. If she was absolutely sure before, now, she is not even 10% sure. Although it is still impossible to determine whether the missile just now was launched by the black fighter plane of the Mutant Affairs Department. But from the current situation, there will be no one else except them. After a few seconds of silence, Phoenix said with a firm face. Okay, I will prove it to you. Then I look forward to your next performance. Richard stuck the authentic knife into the ground and replied quickly. Not long after, the black fighter of the Mutant Affairs Department came in front of them. Like the Blackbird fighter of the X-Men, the black fighter of the Mutant Affairs Department also has the ability to take off and land vertically. After all, the 2 turbine engines in the middle of the wing are not for show. Under the gaze of Richard and others, the black fighter, which looks 70% similar to the Quinjet of the Shield, slowly landed dozens of meters away from them. As soon as the fighter stopped, the hatch behind the fighter opened. As the gangway was lowered, the 3 mutant agents in uniform black combat uniforms walked down from the fighter. After getting off the fighter, they walked straight towards Richard and others without any hesitation or expression on their faces. Are they also clones? Seeing these 3 mutant agents walking towards him like emotionless robots with expressionless faces, Richard's mind unconsciously flashed this guess. There are clones of Sabertooth Tiger in the underground second floor of the Los Angeles branch, and other branches of the Mutant Affairs Department must also have some unknown cards. In other words, secret research that is not convenient to be disclosed to the public. Soon, these 3 expressionless mutant agents came to Richard and his team. At this time, Phoenix stopped in front of them and said to them, "I am Dr. Jean Grey of the X-Men. It was the professor's decision to bring Richard to the mutant school. If you have different opinions, I suggest you contact your superiors now." Although these 3 mutant agents came with bad intentions, she did not immediately use her superpowers to stop their ideas. Not only that, she also tried her best to avoid fighting between the 2 sides. This was not because she was afraid of the 3 mutant agents in front of her, but because she did not want the X-Men and the Mutant Affairs Department to fight. If they fight, no matter who wins or loses, it means that the cooperation between the X-Men and the Department of Mutant Affairs is completely over. This is not the result she wants to see, nor is it the result Professor X wants to see. After hearing what Phoenix said, the middle-aged male agent who looked more than 40 years old and had a sturdy figure immediately replied, "Drive Jean Grey, we respect the professor very much and don't want to go to war with the X-Men. Please get out of the way and don't hinder us from carrying out our mission." Like Phoenix, the 3 agents of the Department of Mutant Affairs also have concerns. It was not them who asked the fighter pilots to launch missiles to attack the Blackbird fighter just now, but their superiors issued an order. If it weren't for the superiors' order, they would never let the fighter pilots launch missiles to attack the Blackbird fighter. Like Professor X, they are also, members of the mutant community. Otherwise, they would not choose to recognize the Mutant Restriction Act, let alone choose to join the Department of Mutant Affairs. After hearing the answer from the sturdy male agent, Phoenix's expression became a little ugly. Although the other party's tone was not particularly impolite, it was obvious that they did not intend to give up the pursuit of Richard. Just as Phoenix was thinking about how to convince them, Richard's sight appeared with the task information that only he could see. Task: One-Winged Angel I. Task content: Kill the 3 mutant agents in front of him. Task reward: Prison Gate, Black Magic Crystal. Task time limit: 10 minutes. Finally, the task of Sephiroth template came. Although he did not expect the system to release the task at this time, after seeing the task name and task reward, Richard silently complained in his heart. The tasks released by the system before were all tasks of the Virgil template, which made him wonder whether the system intended to let him study Sephiroth's other moves by himself. Now it seems that the system is not as unkind as he imagined. After the proficiency of the template is improved, he can indeed study Sephiroth's other moves by himself. But spending time studying by himself is not as direct as completing the task. After closing the task panel in front of him, Richard pulled out the genuine knife stuck in the ground. Although he didn't say anything, the 3 mutant agents immediately entered combat mode after seeing him pull out the genuine knife. They ignored the Phoenix girl in front of them and attacked Richard without saying a word. The male agent standing in the middle shot towards Richard like a cannonball. At the same time, his already sturdy body expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. When he came in front of Richard, his height, which was originally about 1.9 meters, immediately soared to 3 or 4 meters. Like his soaring height, his body also changed significantly, becoming an undoubted giant. Although his body had soared several times, his clothes were not completely torn. His shirt and shoes were torn by his soaring body. But his pants showed amazing elasticity. After seeing this scene, Richard immediately thought of Hulk's pants. In just a moment, the male agent who had transformed into a giant came in front of Richard, and his huge right fist hit his chest fiercely. Flash! Just when the male agent's fist was about to hit him, Richard decisively used flash, easily flashed dozens of meters away, and avoided the male agent's attack. Although he avoided the male agent's attack, he still had a strong sense of danger. Without any hesitation, he used flash again. However, at this moment, another pale, thin male agent, who seemed to have just recovered from a serious illness, appeared in front of him like a ghost, and the black daggers in both hands struck his heart and throat with lightning. What is this? After seeing the pale male agent appear in front of him in an instant, Richard ended the flash that had not yet been performed, and slashed at the opponent with the authentic knife in his left hand. 8 knives flashed. 8 smooth slashes enveloped the pale male agent like a storm of sword blades. However, just when the authentic sword was about to cut through the opponent's body and cut him into 8 pieces, the male agent disappeared instantly, leaving behind a strange gas-like black mist. Teleport. Like Richard, the pale male agent also has the ability to teleport. Not only that, his teleportation ability is a little stronger than Richard's flash. The sharp authentic sword only cut through the strange gas-like black mist, and did not cause any harm to the male agent. 8 swords flashed. Missed. Richard's expression began to become serious. This was the first time he encountered a situation where 8 swords flashed and missed after he crossed into this world. In addition, the black mist left by the male agent's teleportation reminded him of 2 people. Red Devil and Night Walker. When the Red Devil and Night Walker performed teleportation to teleport, they would also leave a strange gas-like smoke. However, one of them left behind red gas, and the other left behind blue gas. Could it really be teleportation? Richard complained in his heart. Although both are teleportation abilities, the teleportation abilities of Red Devil and Night Walker are not the same as his flash. To put it simply, the teleportation abilities of Red Devil and Night Walker are much stronger than his flash. Even after an enhancement, his current flash distance is only 500 meters. The teleportation distance of Red Devil and Night Walker is much farther than his. Even Night Walker, who has not yet fully mastered teleportation and can only teleport within the line of sight, can easily teleport 2 to 3 miles away. After fully mastering it, Night Walker can teleport at any location at will. As for Red Devil, let alone, he can easily travel 3,000 miles in 10 minutes, and he is still carrying others. In previous battles, Richard relied on flash to move quickly and attack the enemy unexpectedly. And now, he has encountered an enemy whose teleportation ability is even better than his. The pale male agent can use teleportation to dodge the attack of the 8 swords flash, which means that it is also difficult to hit him with moves such as Earth Shaking, Zanshin, and II Slash. As for the Big Thunder and Lightning, the Big Blizzard, and the Big Flame, let alone, can he only use the Dimension Slash and the Phantom Sword? Although he still has many X-Gene superpowers, these superpowers are unlikely to hit the opponent. Unless he can interrupt the opponent's teleportation. I hate enemies with teleportation abilities. Richard cursed in his heart. Although he doesn't like such enemies, he can only find a way to deal with them now. Otherwise, a teleporter who appears and disappears mysteriously will make his next battle become hectic. In addition, the female agent who stood in place and seemed to have no superpowers also gave him a very bad premonition. Using the professions in the game to describe it, the male agent who transformed into a giant is undoubtedly a tank and a warrior, and the male agent who is suspected of having teleportation abilities is an assassin. Then the remaining female agent should be a mage or an assistant. Regardless of whether the female agent is a mage responsible for long-range spell attacks in the capture team, or an assistant who protects and assists the other 2 male agents, this is not good news for Richard. Because the presence of this female agent will make it more difficult for him to kill the 2 male agents. Soon, Richard formulated a tactic that allows him to quickly deal with the male agent with teleportation ability. He raised the authentic knife and said to Phoenix and Wolverine, who were still struggling whether to take action, "This is a personal grudge between me and the Mutant Affairs Department. It has nothing to do with you. Don't interfere in my battle." On the surface, Phoenix and Wolverine joining the battle can effectively share his pressure. But he doesn't intend to let them intervene. Because once they intervene, the tactics he just formulated will not be so useful. As he expected, after hearing his words, Phoenix and Wolverine immediately took Clarice and the mutant children back a distance. When they retreated to a distance, Richard danced with the authentic knife, and his eyes fell on the female agent who didn't know whether she had activated her superpowers. Flash. Without any hesitation, he flashed again, and the whole person disappeared immediately, and instantly came behind the female agent, and the authentic knife in his hand struck the female agent's neck with lightning. Although it is unknown what kind of superpowers this female agent has, it does not affect Richard's use of her as a breakthrough. If the opponent can be killed immediately, it would be the best. If not, then the opponent can also be used to execute the tactics he just formulated. When Richard swung the authentic knife, the male agent with teleportation ability instantly appeared in front of him. He did not use the dagger in his hand to resist the authentic knife swung by Richard, but stabbed the dagger in his hand and directly attacked Richard's heart. Although he can't read minds, Richard knows why the male agent didn't resist the authentic knife. To use an idiom, this is called besieging way to save Zhao. Use the attack to the heart to force him to give up attacking the female agent. If he doesn't give up attacking the female agent, the dagger in the male agent's hand will pierce his heart. In the eyes of the male agent, Richard will most likely choose to use Flash to leave at this time. Otherwise, even if he kills the female agent, his heart will be pierced by the dagger. However, the male agent underestimated Richard. Or, he didn't know how many superpowers Richard has now. Richard now has a total of 4 Alpha Level 10 gene superpowers. They are Plunder, Super Strength, Super Physique, and Super Self-Healing. Let's not talk about Plunder and Super Strength. Super Physique and Super Self-Healing alone can make Richard ignore his dagger attack. Richard's current physical strength has reached the point where he can resist bullets. To be precise, even the armor-piercing bullets fired by the large-caliber anti-material sniper rifle may not penetrate his skin now. Even if the dagger in the male agent's hand has a stronger penetration ability than armor-piercing bullets, Richard does not need to worry about dying in the hands of the other party. Because in addition to his super physique with amazing defense, he also has a super self-healing ability that is stronger than that of Sabertooth Tiger and Wolverine. Even if his heart is pierced, he will not die. In just a moment, the black dagger in the male agent's hand pierced Richard's left chest. The next second, the male agent's expression became extremely ugly. Can't pierce it. Although he used all his strength, the dagger in his hand could not pierce Richard's skin at all, as if it had pierced an extremely hard alloy. After realizing this, the male agent immediately had the idea of teleporting away. However, at this moment, Richard's counterattack arrived. Whip of the Mind. Richard did not use other skills on the male agent, but used the super-powered whip of the mind that he had just plundered last night. The male agent who was about to teleport away immediately felt a strong pain from the mental level that he had never experienced before, and his whole body trembled unconsciously as if he was electrocuted by a strong current. The sudden severe pain interrupted his teleportation without any suspense. Got you. After interrupting the teleportation of the male agent with the whip of mind, Richard turned his left wrist and chopped the authentic knife that was originally attacking the female agent at a high speed towards the male agent. 8 Knives Flash. It was still Sephiroth's signature skill, 8 Knives Flash. Although it was still 8 Knives Flash, this time the 8 Knives Flash did not miss. The lightning flashed across the male agent's body, cutting him into 8 pieces and chopping him into debris of different sizes. Plunder. After killing the pale-faced male agent who looked like he had just recovered from a serious illness, Richard did not hesitate and immediately used Plunder. New ability. Teleportation. Ability of the same type. Ability Fusion. Teleportation is enhanced. Teleportation level increased. Current level, Alpha level. After seeing the information given by the system, Richard immediately opened the attribute panel and took a look. As he guessed, the beta level Flash disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by the Alpha level Teleportation. Including the teleportation he just obtained, he now has 5 Alpha level abilities. Although the number of X-Gene superpowers has not increased, it is obvious that teleportation is much better than the Flash he had before. It was not until the male agent's body fell to the grass that the female agent, who was regarded as a breakthrough by Richard, finally reacted and immediately used her own superpowers. Gravity Binding. Although Richard's exact location could not be seen, the gravity binding cast by the female agent covered a circular area with a diameter of 20 meters. Boom. With the female agent as the center, the ground within a diameter of 20 meters instantly sank by more than 10 to 20 centimeters. The female agent used her superpowers very quickly. But Richard was even faster. Before the gravity binding covered him, he used the teleportation he had just plundered and upgraded to teleport away and came to a big tree more than 100 meters away. Although it was the teleportation plundered from the male agent, it was not known whether it was because of the upgrade or individual differences. Richard, who performed the teleportation, did not leave a strange black fog like the male agent. On the surface, the teleportation he just performed was no different from the flash he performed before. If he didn't say it, others would not know that he was performing the teleportation now. Whether it was the Red Devil and the Night Walker, or the pale male agent, the teleportation they performed would have some additional, visual effects. Compared with them, Richard's teleportation was much simpler. Although there were no additional visual effects, he didn't take it seriously. Or rather, he preferred this kind of teleportation without visual effects. After performing teleportation to avoid the gravity restraint of the female agent, Richard did not immediately attack her and the male agent, who transformed into a giant. Without the restraint and interference of the teleporting male agent, it was only a matter of time to kill the two of them. Whether it was the remaining male or female agents, or Phoenix and Wolverine, their expressions became serious after seeing Richard kill the male agent with teleportation ability without much effort. Especially the remaining male and female agents. They were not a temporary capture team formed to capture Richard. Not long after joining the Mutant Affairs Department, the three of them formed a fixed team, specializing in capturing those difficult targets that ordinary mutant agents could not capture. Using the military as an analogy, their three-person team is equivalent to the special forces in the army. However, now, the team that has been carrying out missions together for several years has lost members. For their three-person team, the death of anyone will cause an irreparable flaw in the team that originally had a clear division of labor. And in battle, flaws mean death. Although they didn't know why the pale male agent didn't use teleportation to avoid Richard's attack, the giant male agent and the female agent didn't waste time thinking about this problem, but thought about what to do next. In terms of combat effectiveness, they still have combat capabilities now. But the problem is that without the restraint of the teleporting male agent, it is difficult for them to catch Richard. Even if the female agent has a restriction method such as gravity binding. Unlike them, who didn't know whether to continue the mission or retreat for a while, Richard didn't think too much. After confirming that the alpha-level teleportation ability and the beta-level flash were no different in use, he decisively launched an attack. To be precise, he attacked the giant male agent. Teleportation. In just a moment, he teleported to the air behind the giant male agent. Shock the sky. 4 lightning-fast slashes immediately attacked the giant male agent's head. Because of the size difference, Richard used Shock the Sky, which he rarely used. Like Shake the Earth, Shock the Sky is also a 4-cut combo. However, Shock the Sky is an aerial version of the 4-cut combo. When Richard used Shock the Sky, the giant male agent bent down as if he had the instinct of a beast. Then, he showed a flexibility that was completely inconsistent with his size, and dodged Richard's Shock the Sky with a side flip. Or rather, he avoided part of the slashes from Shock the Sky. Although he avoided part of the slashes from Shock the Sky, the authentic sword still left a nearly 1-meter-long knife mark on his back. Compared with the entire head being chopped off, this injury was nothing. Not only that, the back that was chopped by the authentic sword did not bleed much. As soon as the blood flowed out, the wound on the back of the giant male agent began to heal visibly. After seeing this scene, Richard knew that the giant male agent's superpower was not just to transform into a giant. In other words, after transforming into a giant, the male agent's body did not just become bigger and stronger. While the giant male agent dodged Genshin, the female agent next to him once again used gravity binding to try to completely trap Richard. But it was obvious that without the teleporting male agent to restrain him, it was difficult for her to trap Richard. Just like before, Richard teleported away before the gravity binding enveloped him. Although he failed to trap Richard, the gravity binding used by the female agent still trapped a person. Giant male agent. In order to catch Richard as much as possible, the female agent expanded the range of gravity binding to a diameter of 50 meters. Although the larger the range, the weaker the power of gravity binding. But the female agent has no other choice now. If she controls the range of gravity binding to a diameter of 1 or 2 meters, she will not have a chance to trap Richard at all. After seeing Richard disappear, the female agent immediately cancelled the gravity binding and did not continue to let the giant male agent experience the super strong gravity that was instantly strengthened by hundreds of times. After getting up, the giant male agent did not look for Richard's trace, but came to the front of the female agent as soon as possible and protected the female agent behind him. The giant male agent's action was very gentlemanly, but it did not make Richard change his mind. Although the prison gate and the summoning of the black magic crystal are not particularly powerful skills, they are not as good as the skills such as the Heartless Angel, the Declaration of Fate, the Supernova, and the One-Winged Angel form that Richard has been thinking about. But even so, Richard will not give up this mission. Mind transmission. Richard teleported to more than 20 meters in front of the giant male agent and the female agent, looked at them calmly, and said slowly, "You two are not ordinary colleagues, right? If you have anything to say to each other, I suggest you say it now. Otherwise, you will never have a chance in the future." Seeing the giant male agent rush to the female agent as soon as he got up and protected her behind him, Richard's intuition told him that the relationship between the giant male agent and the female agent might not be that simple. It is normal to protect comrades on the battlefield, especially to protect comrades who have no frontal combat ability. But he believes in his intuition. After hearing Richard's words, the giant male agent and the female agent did not speak, and looked at him with vigilance. "You really don't have anything else to say to each other?" Richard stuck the authentic knife into the ground and continued. "It seems that he feels that the two of them really can't leave here alive today, or it may be that Richard's action of sticking the authentic knife into the ground shows his sincerity." After a few seconds of silence, the giant male agent turned his head and looked at the female agent behind him, looking like he wanted to say something but stopped. Although he didn't speak, after seeing the expression on his face, the female agent, who had been expressionless since the appearance, showed a bright smile. Then, he raised his right hand and held the hand of the giant male agent. Neither of them spoke, and looked at each other. Although it was just eye contact, for both of them, it was enough for them to understand each other's intentions. As the saying goes, everything is self-evident. If Richard wanted to attack them, this would be a good opportunity. But he did not do so, but gave the giant male agent and the female agent enough time. Under the gaze of him and the Phoenix Girl and others, the giant male agent suddenly lifted the transformation and returned to a normal human appearance. Then, he hugged the female agent in front of him and gave her a deep French kiss. Time passed little by little. Almost half a minute later, the two of them let go of each other, and the giant male agent turned back into a giant. "Thank you." After turning back into a giant, the male agent said to Richard. Richard did not speak, nodded, pulled out the authentic knife stuck in the ground, and pointed the tip of the knife at them. Dimension Slash. When Richard began to perform the Dimension Slash, the battle soon came to an end. Neither the giant male agent nor the female agent had the ability to resist the Dimension Slash. In front of the powerful and elusive Dimension Slash, they quickly fell. Although they died under the Dimension Slash, both the giant male agent and the female agent had very calm expressions before they died, as if they didn't care whether they would die or not. The mission, One-Winged Angel I, has been completed. The mission rewards Prison Gate and Black Magic Crystal have been sent. Skills Prison Gate and Black Magic Crystal awaken. After the giant male agent and the female agent died, the information that the mission was completed immediately appeared in Richard's sight. He didn't care about this information, and went straight to the bodies of the two giant male agents who were no longer human-shaped, and began to plunder. New abilities. Giant Body, Gravity Binding. Obtain the same type of ability, Ability Fusion. Giant Body is strengthened. X-Gene Superpower content updated. Alpha Level. Plunder, Super Strength, Super Physique, Super Self-Healing, Teleportation. Beta Level. Ejection, Ion Shock Wave, Mind Isolation, Mind Charm, Giant Body, Gravity Bondage. Delta Level. Energy Absorption, Mind Movement, Beast Intuition, Bone Claws. After taking a look at the bodies of the two giant male agents, Richard used the skill, Big Flame, to summon a ball of orange-red hot flames. Then, let the orange-red flame cover the bodies of the two giant male agents. It's over. Watching the bodies of the two giant male agents turn into ashes under the burning of the orange-red flame, Richard sighed in his heart. I don't know if it's because he killed too many people in the past 2 days, or because he saw the calmness of the two giant male agents before they died, he suddenly became a little sentimental at this time. But soon, he adjusted his mood back to normal, and performed teleportation to come in front of Phoenix Girl and others. Then, he said to Phoenix, "It turns out that your promise is useless. Please tell the professor not to use the brainwave enhancer to find me, and don't send you to find me. If I want to see him, I will go to the mutant school in person." Phoenix nodded and said slowly, "I will tell the professor what you said." Richard turned his head to look at Clarice and Sabertooth, and continued, "Victor, you are a good adoptive father, but you are really not a good teacher. In addition, you can't protect Clarice for life. Clarice's superpowers are pretty good. If they are developed well, her strength will be stronger than yours. I have a suggestion for you. Let Clarice stay in the mutant school to study, which is better for both you and Clarice. Although I don't approve of some of the practices of Professor X and Phoenix, their teaching and guidance abilities are indeed much stronger than Sabertooth. Letting Clarice stay in the mutant school to study is definitely better than following Sabertooth. Not only that, Clarice's identity as an illegal mutant has been exposed. More importantly, the Department of Mutant Affairs has now most likely regarded Sabertooth and Clarice as his accomplices. If Sabertooth doesn't want Clarice to be caught by the Mutant Affairs Department, then he'd better let Clarice stay in the mutant school. You don't need to tell me this. I told Clarice last night. She will study in the mutant school for a while. When the time is right, I will pick her up and leave," Sabertooth said quickly. Richard looked at Sabertooth with some surprise. He didn't expect that the big and strong Sabertooth had also considered these issues. "Let's meet again in the future." After saying that, Richard was ready to perform teleportation and leave. At this moment, an idea suddenly flashed through his mind, and he stopped performing teleportation and came to Wolverine. "Do you really want to know your past? Go ask him. He is your half-brother." Richard pointed at Sabertooth and said, "Half-brother." After hearing his words, Phoenix and Wolverine showed surprised expressions at the same time. Phoenix and Wolverine were surprised because they didn't know about this at all. Sabertooth was surprised because he didn't expect Richard to know that Wolverine was his half-brother. Although he had told Richard that Wolverine was his brother before, he didn't say that he and Wolverine were half-brothers. How did he know? Phoenix and the other two looked at Richard with confusion. Richard certainly wouldn't give them a chance to ask him. Before they could speak, he performed teleportation and disappeared from their sight in an instant. After Richard teleported away, Wolverine's eyes immediately fell on Sabertooth. Time flies. Unknowingly, 3 months have passed. In these 3 months, Richard had a good experience of the life of an S-level wanted criminal of the Mutant Affairs Department. After killing 3 giant male agents, the arrest force of the Mutant Affairs Department became stronger and stronger. However, he still carried out his life in an orderly manner. When he was not discovered by the Mutant Affairs Department, he would find a secluded place to practice skills such as Dimension Slash, Prison Gate, and 8 Swords Flash. After being discovered, he had a "whoever loses will go to hell" battle with the agents sent by the Mutant Affairs Department. 3 months of training and fighting not only upgraded all his skills to level 3, but also allowed him to plunder some good X-Gene superpowers. For example, the heat ray plundered from a certain agent, and the telepathic ability plundered from a psychic, which was not as powerful as Professor X and the White Queen, but had complete effects. Not only that, the fusion degree of Sephiroth's template was also increased by 45%. The upgrade of skills and the improvement of template fusion degree made him have a long flowing silver hair that was not inferior to Sephiroth. Compared with short hair, waist-length hair does have many inconveniences. But Richard was not dissatisfied, because he found that when he had the same flowing silver hair as Sephiroth, he became more handsome. In front of becoming more handsome, some small inconveniences in life are nothing. A forest dozens of kilometers away from San Francisco. Richard, with his silver hair fluttering, is practicing today. Dimensional Slash, Prison Gate, 8 Swords Flash. Time passes by little. After completing today's practice, Richard opens the attribute panel. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.